Welcome back to part 5 of What If Naruto Was Told About the Secret About the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Please make sure to like and subscribe as it motivates me to make more videos in the future. As always, link to the fanfiction is in the description. Chapter 13. A Healing Hand, or Snake. It was late in the afternoon that Team 7 trudged through the gates of Konoha. The trip home had been rather quiet and awkward for the three genin. Naruto had been silent the entire way, not even making the usual snide and sarcastic remarks to anyone in the group as he was wont to do, and had seemingly withdrawn into himself almost as soon as they had left Nami. Sasuke had switched between continuously playing with his Sharingan and glaring at and/or trying to goad Naruto into a fight. Having heard that the blonde had single-handedly decimated Gato and his forces that had shown up after the battle, the raven-haired Avenger had been disappointed that he had not gotten to prove himself against the horde of thugs Gato had come with, and jealous that Naruto had been able to do that while he had been knocked out. And so now he wanted nothing more than to fight Naruto and prove that he could beat the blonde, feeling secure in his chances of winning now that he had his Sharingan. Sakura had also been surprisingly quiet, switching between looking longingly at Sasuke and worriedly at Naruto. She was still going through some minor shock at having seen the blonde cry. It did not help that Kakashi had chosen to read his book instead of trying to engage in conversation and make sure his students were all right. Though that was mainly due to the fact that Kakashi had no clue what to do or say, having never had to deal with this kind of situation. Naruto refused to talk to him, or anyone. Sakura only tried talking to Sasuke, and she did not really get involved in this mission enough that it had any effect on her psyche. And Sasuke did not seem to be bothered at the fact that he had killed two chunin, focusing his attention on either his new red eyes or Naruto. The silver-haired Jonin now had even more respect for his sensei than he had previously thought possible. The man had made this seem so easy, but apparently it was anything but. Kakashi-san, Kotetsu, one of the gate guards who had become known as the Eternal Chunin along with his partner Izumo, greeted as soon as they entered the gate. "I see you've returned. I trust the mission went well." Kakashi grimaced on the inside. Well would not be how he put this mission, but he kept an indifferent face as he showed them his and his team's identification papers. "As well as can be expected for my team's first time out of Konoha," Kakashi replied in a nonchalant voice. Izumi, who sat next to Kotetsu, nodded. "Yeah, I remember my first time out of the village. Not quite the experience I had expected as a genin either." "That's because you accidentally sat in poison ivy," Kotetsu snickered. "Shut up, man." Izumo shot his partner a small glare. "Did you have to bring that up?" "Yes," Kotetsu answered with a grin. "You sat in poison ivy, and then you had to have a specialized ointment for your ass." Kakashi ignored the two as they began to squabble since he had grown used to it by now. Turning around, he looked at his team. "I'm going to report to the Hokage. Since this mission was a bit more than we had anticipated, you three can head home and rest while I give my report." Sasuke nodded and left as soon as he said that, hands in his pocket and his "I care about nothing, I'm an Uchiha" attitude in place. Sakura gave one last look to her sensei and the unusually quiet Naruto before leaving as well, following after Sasuke in the hopes of maybe getting a date. "Sensei," Naruto said in an unnaturally soft voice, getting the attention of the Cyclopean Jonin. "Can I go with you? I need to talk to Oji-san." "I see, he still doesn't quite trust me," Kakashi thought with a sigh. He should have known that Naruto would want to talk with the Hokage about what happened in Nami. Given how close the two were, it was only natural. Kakashi had tried to talk to Naruto about it, but the genin had rebuffed his advances with what Kakashi now recognized as his old mask, that cheerful smile he always gave. "I guess it will take a bit more to get him to open up to me." "Sure, Naruto, let's go," Kakashi said, turning around and walking off. A few seconds later, Naruto caught up and walked by his side. Sarutobi giggled perversely as he sat on the couch next to the pictures of the four Hokages and read his book. Over at his desk were two Kage Bunshins diligently working on the paperwork that he had. He really did have to thank Naruto for finding out such an ingenious use for the jutsu. Truly, the boy was a genius like his father was. He was knocked out of his thoughts when a knock came at his door. "Hokage-sama, Kakashi and Naruto of Team 7 are here to see you." Sarutobi sighed as he heard both the hesitation and the disgust that his aide had when she said Naruto's name. He was going to have a talk with her. And if she can't change her opinions about him, I guess I'll just have to fire her. Standing up as his clones dispelled, Sarutobi sat down in his chair and addressed his aide, "Send them in." The two opened and Kakashi walked in with an unusually subdued Naruto. Sarutobi quirked an eyebrow as he saw the boy's solemn and fearful expression. He shook his curiosity off and looked over at Kakashi. "Ah. Kakashi, Naruto-kun, it is good to see you two back from your mission. However, I must ask, where are Sasuke and Sakura? The mission was a little more than we anticipated, Hokage-sama, so I sent them home to get some rest," Kakashi answered, giving the aging Sandaime a meaningful glance as he snapped his book shut. "Naruto here came because he wanted to talk to you." Understanding the look, Sarutobi held up a hand. The Anbu who were hiding in the corner of the room appeared and then walked out of the door. Sarutobi used some chakra to activate the silencing seal that Minato had created when he had been Hokage. There was a soft glow that filled the room for a second before going back to normal. "I take it there was a lot more to this mission than simply an escort and protection detail," Sarutobi said, gesturing for Kakashi to give his report. "Hi Hokage-sama. The mission was much more than we expected. It started on our way to Nami, when we ran into two chunin-level missing ninja from Kiri." Kakashi began explaining what had happened on the mission, making sure to be concise and to the point. When he got to the part where Naruto had used the Kyuubi's chakra, Sarutobi stiffened and Naruto flinched. "Afterwards we left Nami and headed straight here," Kakashi finished. "I see," Sarutobi said, puffing on the pipe he had gotten out some time during the report. To think that such a thing could happen on a mission that was supposed to be a simple C rank. This is what we get when we have a bad case of misinformation, both from our client and apparently our network outside of the village. Still, to hear that a squad of genin were able to complete a mission that was easily A-ranked is astounding to say the least, even if the jonin with them was a ninja of Kakashi's caliber. Sarutobi looked at Naruto, who was emitting so many emotions it was hard to tell what the boy was thinking. "Thank you Kakashi-kun, you may go now," Sarutobi said, knowing that Naruto would want to speak with him alone. "Hi Hokage-sama," Kakashi bowed a bit. He briefly put a reassuring hand on Naruto's shoulder before leaving. When the door shut again, Sarutobi left the silencing seals on as he stood up and moved over to the couch, gesturing for Naruto to follow him. Sarutobi said nothing as the boy sat next to him, knowing the boy would speak when ready. "You already know I used the fox's chakra," Naruto began. Why don't you start at the beginning?" Sarutobi said in a kind voice after Naruto stopped speaking. The boy nodded before beginning again. "It started when I met a girl in the woods, her name was Haku." As Naruto started his own story, Sarutobi paid close attention to the boy's emotions. It was obvious this was a painful experience for him, even more so than learning about the fox. As the Sandaime listened, he found himself surprised again. He had never heard of two enemy ninja falling in love while on opposing missions, and he had experienced and heard a lot of things in his life. It seemed that boy would always be able to find some way to surprise Sarutobi. However, as the boy reached the part where the girl had died, Sarutobi knew, at least partly, just how hurt the boy still was. And then Gato showed. Naruto began, his fists clenching as he thought of the man. "I can't remember all that was said, I wasn't really paying attention. However, when he started talking about Haku-chan, and how he was going to desecrate her body, he choked a bit on the words but forced them out. I got so angry, and then a voice came inside my head." Sarutobi stiffened at that as Naruto looked at him. "Kill," it said. "It told me to kill, to take revenge on those who had forced Haku-chan to fight and those who would. I remember being overcome by rage after that, of slaughtering all those Gato had brought with him, and Gato himself. I had literally squeezed his head hard enough that it exploded." Sarutobi nearly gagged as he got a mental image of Naruto simply squeezing the man with such force that his head literally blew up. Now, being a man who had lived through all three wars, he had seen acts that were far worse than what his surrogate grandson had described. He had seen countless acts of brutality, and had even lain witness to the power of a Jinchuriki while using their Biju, as well as having fought two of them in his life. However, the fact that the person who had killed a man in such a violent way was the young boy before him was enough that his normal desensitization to the violent lifestyle they lead to be overridden. Naruto looked down at his now shaking hands. "But that's not even the worst of it, Gigi," The young blonde took a shuddering breath. What was it that I had loved every minute of it? Sarutobi looked at Naruto sharply, but his eyes softened when he saw the tears in the blonde's eyes. It was horrible, like another person had taken over. My mind knew what my body was doing and rebelled, but my body loved it. The feel of blood on my hands as I killed them, the feeling of squishing Gato's head, I feel like I've become a monster. As the blonde began shaking even more, Sarutobi realized what had happened. Naruto got so angry that the fox was able to make a connection to him and influence the boy. For something like that to happen, he must have felt intense emotions. That the Kyuubi could actually talk to the boy is disturbing. I'm going to have to call Jiraiya here. Looking down at the shaking genin, Sarutobi felt his heart breaking, but not now. Right now I need to help Naruto. Naruto-kun, look at me, Sarutobi said softly. Naruto looked up at him and the old Sandaime placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. I want you to listen to me. You are not a monster or a demon. You are a hero. Do you know why the Yondaime chose you to bear this responsibility? Naruto shook his head and the old Hokage gave him a smile. He chose you because he knew you would be capable of controlling the fox's chakra, and using that power to protect everything you cherish. It was a small stretch of the imagination. Minato had not had much of a choice in Vessel. Sarutobi was still not all that sure what had happened that night when he found Naruto crying beside the corpse of his mother and dying father. But he knew that Naruto had really been the only choice. However, it was also well known that Minato had been able to come up with plans several years into the future, and so Sarutobi knew that he had sealed the fox in his son for a reason aside from the obvious ones, when he could have just sealed it back into Kushina, who had been the fox's previous Jinchuriki. Really? Naruto asked with a small sniff as he wiped his eyes with his cloak. But, how can I possibly control such a monster? Kyuubi is supposed to be the strongest of the Biju, and that bloodlust. Naruto shuddered as he remembered the feeling he had gotten when he had used the fox's chakra. Truthfully, I do not know how Yondaime-sama planned on having you control the Kyuubi, Sarutobi frowned. Perhaps he thought you would make some kind of deal with it, or perhaps he thought you would be able to subdue it. But I do know that he felt you would be able to use its chakra to protect the people you love. Naruto was silent for a moment as he stared at Sarutobi. Every time the man talked about the Yondaime's faith in him, it felt like there was some kind of hidden meaning, though he could not fathom what that would be. Do you think I can do it? Naruto asked in a quiet voice. Sarutobi gave him a smile. I know you can do it. If anyone can, it would be you, Naruto-kun. Naruto smiled a genuine smile as he gave his grandfather figure a hug. Thanks, Ji-chan. Sarutobi chuckled as he hugged the boy back. You are most welcome, Naruto-kun. If you need anything else, don't hesitate to ask. Do you think Haku-chan would be disappointed in me? Asked Naruto after a few seconds. Sarutobi sighed. Truthfully, I don't know. I do not know anything about this Haku girl except what you have told me. However, it sounds as if she loved you just as much as you love her. I do not think she would be mad or disappointed in you. I believe that so long as you keep in your heart and continue to grow and protect the people who are precious to you, her soul will be able to rest in peace. Naruto nodded as he stood up. He still felt a little scared, still felt the pain of losing Haku. But at least it felt a bit more bearable now. Standing up, he plastered a smile on his face, deciding that his old look was needed for the moment. I'll see you later, Oja-san, Naruto called out as he left. It seems I'll need Jiraiya to come sooner than I thought, Sarutobi frowned. If the seal is weakened enough that the fox can influence the boy, for now I will have faith in Naruto's will. I believe he is strong enough to resist the fox. Sighing a bit as he walked up the stairs to his apartment, Naruto reached out a hand and was just about to channel some chakra into the security seals when he heard a noise that made him freeze. Eyes widened, he channeled chakra into the seal and as soon as the door unlocked burst in, only to see a sight that made him pale. WHWH, what the hell are you two doing? Lying on the couch was Kian in nothing but a pair of boxers, and Akira wearing only a pink thong that the blonde knew for a fact his clone had not been wearing when he left. Kian had one hand on Akira's left breast and his mouth had been latched onto her neck. At least, until Naruto had barged in and was now hanging open wide enough to fit one of the faces on the Hokage monument in. Likewise, Akira, who had been moaning previously, was staring at him in shock and embarrassment. Kian tried to speak. However, Naruto stomped into the room angrily as he glared at his two specially created clones. I asked you a question. What the hell are you two doing? Naruto ground out, his face completely red, though whether from embarrassment or anger not even he knew. Well it just, sort of happened you know, Akira said, her face also red. After we got the memories of you and Haku from your other cage bunchen we grew curious. What the hell? I know clones are capable of independent thought and these two can even be considered people in their own right, but I never thought something like this could happen. Naruto said with a mental scream. Slowly he took a deep breath. How long has this been going on? Naruto asked before he held a hand up. Wait. Never mind, I'll find out for myself. Kiin looked at him confusingly. What do you mean? A puff of smoke signaled Naruto, giving the mental command to dispel of them both. Naruto's eyes fluttered as information came to him. The progress the two made at their jobs, along with how much money he had from them. Akira's shopping spree where she bought several pairs of female clothes, Kiin's hobby of collecting unusual manga, and finally, his two clones eventually getting into some heavy petting. That information was so overwhelming and embarrassing, not to mention disgusting, especially since he saw it from both sides, that he passed out and hit the floor with a thud. The next morning found Naruto waking up wondering what hit him. Looking around from his position he realized three things. 1. He was on the floor of his apartment right next to the entrance, which was still open and hitting his left leg. 2. It was already morning, meaning he had slept on the floor of his apartment all night. And 3. His special clones were going to need some serious reprogramming to make sure this didn't happen again. Standing up he shuddered a bit as the information of his two clones filled his mind, and he was forced to resist an intense urge to vomit. Thankfully they had not had sex. If they had, he most likely would have died of shock, embarrassment and disgust. But that they had started actually getting into each other was repulsive to say the least. And it was worse for him since he saw what was happening on both sides, making the experience all the more disturbing. It went without question that he would be doing his best to fix them when he made the pair again so that they did not remember their intimate encounter. Sighing, he decided to get his day started. After getting ready, Naruto found himself at Training Ground 10, where he hoped to find Team 10 training. His sensei had given his team the week off to recover from the ordeal they were put through. However, Naruto felt an intense need to keep himself as busy as possible, feeling that so long as he was busy, the memories would not bother him. So here he was looking for some help in his elemental training. Of course he did find them, though training did not even seem to be on the mind of their team. Shikamaru and Asuma were seated under a large tree, a board situated between them. The two would move pieces back and forth. Occasionally Shikamaru would take a piece and Asuma would look at the board in frustration. Choji was eating a bag of potato chips, an act that the Akamichi genin was always doing at just about every time of the day. He was sitting down next to Shikamaru watching the match going on between his best friend and his sensei. And Ino was complaining, loudly. What she was complaining about Naruto didn't know, she was talking so fast even he could barely make it out. Not that he cared to find out, since the girl was always complaining about something. With the people, or in this case person he had been looking for found, Naruto set off in their direction. Come on, why do you guys all have to be so lazy? Ino yelled as she tried to get one of her teammates or her sensei to do something. Shouldn't they be training to be ninja? How could she impress Sasuke if all he did was sit around here being lazy? Aren't we supposed to be training after missions? Ino, we are training, Asuma said as he took a puff of his cigarette. Shogi requires a tactically sound mind and is a good way to come up with strategies that the team might employ. And yet, only you and Shikamaru ever play the game, Ino said with an angry huff. Asuma frowned and was about to make a retort when a voice called out his name. Asuma-sensei. Turning their heads, the three genin and Jonin-sensei saw Naruto running towards them at a light trot. When he got near them he stopped and grinned, just the person I was looking for. The three genin looked at him in confusion. Well, Shikamaru and Choji looked confused, while Ino just looked disgruntled. Naruto, what are you doing here? She asked, placing her fists on her hips and looking at him in a haughty fashion. In case you haven't noticed, this isn't your training ground. You can't just waltz around wherever you want. Raising an eyebrow, Naruto looked at Ino for a moment, before he shrugged and turned his attention to Asuma. I was actually coming here to ask you for some advice, Asuma-sensei. While Ino fumed at being ignored, Asuma and the others looked surprised, but the Jonin merely shrugged. Shouldn't you be asking Kakashi for whatever help you need? He asked. He is your Jonin-sensei after all. I have, Naruto said with a small shrug, however he doesn't have enough knowledge on what I want help with, and Oji-san suggested I talk with you about it. Asuma's eyebrows rose a good deal. Kakashi was exceptionally gifted and hailed as one of the strongest ninja under the Hokage. There were very few things he could not do that Asuma could, so, what is it that you need then? In response Naruto gave a grin and held up what Asuma noticed as chakra affinity paper. The man raised an eyebrow in curiosity, only for them to widen in shock as the paper was torn to shreds. Looking at the grinning Naruto, Asuma took a deep puff of his cigarette to calm the surprise he felt. You have a wind affinity, he said slowly, and a strong one at that, if the torn paper was any indication. Naruto nodded, yes, I've been working on the leaf-cutting exercise but have only been able to get it halfway. You're the only wind user in Konoha, so I was hoping you would have some advice. Nodding slightly to himself Asuma stood up and reached into his pouch, pulling a trench knife. Holding it up so Naruto could see it, the Jonin channeled his wind chakra into the blade to create a green glow. When I channel my wind chakra, I often think of it as two sharp edges rubbing against each other in order to create a sharp razor blade. Taking the knife Asuma threw it at a tree. Naruto watched his mind going from amazement, to awe, to shock, as the weapon cut through tree, then the rock behind it, before coming out of the rock and embedding itself on the ground. Asuma looked at Naruto. The trick is to make the two edges as close as possible to create a sharp blade of wind that can cut through the leaf. Naruto nodded before running over to get the trench knife. Picking it up Naruto walked over at a more sedate pace as he examined the knife. The blade looked extremely sharp and well maintained. The back edge looked slightly serrated, and the handles had hand guards. It was very simple, yet Naruto's time spent with Tenten had taught him quite a bit about weapons. This is excellent quality, Naruto said as he handed the blade back. I'm guessing the metal used is chakra conducive. It is, Asuma said with a raised eyebrow, the only indication of his surprise at the boy's knowledge of weaponry. The other three were not doing as well at hiding their surprise. Ino was looking between the two, her face somewhere between shock and curiosity. Choji while still eating threw glances at Naruto. Meanwhile Shikamaru had his eyes narrowed at Naruto, as if trying to solve some sort of puzzle. Maitu-san told me that elemental manipulation is a Jonin-level ability. So why is Naruto already working on it? Shikamaru wondered, his mind trying to come up with an answer, only to find none. Hey, is that a shogi board? His attention was diverted from trying to figure out how the blonde, who had been dead last of their class, could already be working on such an advanced ability. Yeah it is, Asuma said as Naruto examined the game that was currently in play. You play? Not very much, Naruto admitted with a sigh as he ran a hand through his hair. I've only played with my clones, but trying to beat yourself is an exercise in pointlessness. You interested in a game? Asked Asuma. I haven't been able to beat Shikamaru yet, it's getting rather frustrating. Naruto raised an eyebrow and looked over at Shikamaru. Said Genin shrugged, I don't see why not. Naruto nodded and sat down as Shikamaru rearranged the pieces. Since Naruto was just starting out, Shikamaru gave him the first move. Naruto watched as Shikamaru went after him and moved his next piece almost immediately afterwards. His opponent looked a little startled but moved another piece. Again Naruto moved one of his pieces almost immediately afterwards. Shogi was a game that was purely strategic. When playing you used traps, making plans and strategies to take your opponent's pieces and eventually placing your opponent's king in checkmate. It required a knack for thinking several steps in advance. The farther ahead you could plan out your maneuvers, the more likely you were to win. 13 moves into the game Shikamaru was sweating, having already used his thinking pose 7 times in just as many moves. He was beginning to feel desperate. He looked up at Naruto to see his fellow genin staring at the board impassively. Looking back at the board Shikamaru calculated the best strategy he could before moving his piece. Naruto then moved his piece right after. Shikamaru looked at the board carefully and moved another piece. Less than half an hour later Shikamaru was down to 1 gold general, 1 knight, his bishop and 6 pawns. Meanwhile Naruto had only lost a gold general and 2 pawns. It was only 15 minutes later that Shikamaru leaned over the board in shock, trying to figure out how he lost. He lost, Choji murmured, having stopped eating a while ago as the intensity of the match had begun to heat up. But, Shikamaru's never lost. Asuma was also gaping at the scene. Having spent so much time trying to beat Shikamaru himself, it was rather hard to see someone else beat him. And for it to be the dead last of his students' graduating class, and his first time facing him was even more shocking. Ino, who did not know much about shogi or care enough to find out, was the only one who was confused about what happened. I don't get it. So he beat Shikamaru, so what? Ino, shogi is a game that requires an incredible amount of strategic thinking, using traps and combat maneuvers to eventually get the king into checkmate. Asuma said, trying to explain the significance of what happened. Huffing, Ino crossed her arms. I know that. I just don't see what the big deal is. It was probably just luck. I don't think so, Shikamaru said to himself as he replayed the match in his mind. I've never seen some of those maneuvers before. He managed to beat me and only lost 3 pieces himself. That kind of thing can never be considered luck. You're pretty good, he complimented the blonde, maybe we can play again sometime. Naruto grinned as he stood up, yeah, maybe. Anyways, thanks for the help Asuma-sensei, he said as he turned to look at the son of Sarutobi. No problem, it will be interesting to see what another wind user can do, Asuma said. Naruto nodded, well thanks anyway. I'll see you guys later. Naruto disappeared in a puff of smoke, signifying that they had been talking to a clone the whole time. Kage Bunshin Asuma thought as he took a drag of his cigarette. I had heard he could use it, but I didn't realize he knew its secret. Definitely an interesting kid. Hey, what was that? Asked Ino, once again the only one who was ignorant. How did he just disappear like that? Everyone except Choji, who was eating, just sighed as Ino began to ask questions in a loud voice. Within the clearing of Training Ground 43, all of the Naruto clones who were currently working on cutting a leaf in half looked up and blinked as the information came to them. With the new knowledge available, they got back to work on trying to cut a leaf. The original Naruto had also stopped his workout routine for a second as he received the memories of his Kage Bunshin. Grunting from the exertion, he began doing push-ups again, counting down as he finished his set of 300. He continued doing his routine until one of his Kage Bunshin dispelled, giving the knowledge that it had managed to cut a leaf in half. Nearly a second later, the sound of mass ripping was heard as all the clones cut their leaves as well. Yada! The clones shouted, causing Naruto to actually wince a bit. They weren't normally this excited, but given that he had been trying to learn to do this particular exercise for several weeks, it was quite an accomplishment. Standing up, Naruto began giving his clones orders. Alright. You know the drill. Dispel in groups of 10. After getting a unanimous, yosh, from his clones, Naruto walked over to one of the trees and sat down in a meditative pose. It was not necessary, but Naruto found he could sort through the information much easier if he was meditating. For about half an hour he went through the information his clones had on cutting a leaf with wind chakra. It was actually kind of interesting since his clones had independent thought. They did things differently from each other, giving him different perspectives from each clone. Once all the knowledge he gained was sorted, Naruto picked up one of the leaves that had fallen from the tree he was under. Channeling his chakra, he imagined 2 edges grinding together and sharpening. He nodded in satisfaction as the leaf split in half. Standing up, Naruto went back to his physical training. Smiling a bit to himself, Naruto entered the small ramen stand that had been one of his safe havens from the world when he was younger. After finishing his morning training, he decided that since he had not been to Ichiraku's for a while, he should go ahead and splurge. Oi, Tyuki Oji-san, Ayame-chan. How about some ramen for your favorite customer? He shouted as he sat down in the stool reserved for him. Hey Naruto-kun, Ayame greeted with a large smile as she came out of the back. It turned into a frown, however, as she placed her hands on her hips. You know, you haven't been in very recently. Sorry Ayame-ne-chan, Naruto rubbed the back of his head and gave a sheepish laugh. I was out on a mission away the village. I just got back yesterday. Ayame pouted for a second more before grinning. Well, I suppose that's alright since you were out of the village. So the usual. You know me too well Ayame-ne-chan, Naruto said with a grin. Alright then, it will be comin' right up. Ayame said, enjoying the odd new nickname he seemed to have added to her title. As she began making Naruto's ramen, said blonde decided to make some more conversation. So where is Tyuki Oja-san? Asked Naruto, curious about where the old man was since he was usually the one to greet the blonde. He's out of the village getting some supplies for this new ramen he's trying to concoct, Ayame said as she stirred the pot with ramen noodles in it. So I've been working on my own for the past few days. Naruto nodded as Ayame brought his first bowl of ramen. Thanks Ne-chan, he said, snapping his chopstick and say it quick, itadakimasu, before digging in. Ah ramen, how I missed thee. Ayame giggled at Naruto's antics. She went back to making some more ramen, knowing Naruto would want at least 6 more bowls before feeling even remotely full. Naruto slowed down his eating a bit as he savored their flavor. Ramen from Ichiraku's had always been his comfort food, ever since he had found the place. He was so caught up in his eating that he did not notice the presence behind him until it was too late. You know, you should have told me you had returned. A pair of arms slid around him and Naruto stiffened at the contact. An image flashed through his mind. He was sitting in the clearing, spreading out the things he had prepared this morning for his and Haku's picnic. As he reached into the basket, a pair of arms slid around him. Despite knowing who it was, he turned around and laid eyes on the beautiful girl he had come to know so well in the past 3 days. Anko frowned when she noticed Naruto's reaction. The way he reacted was similar to how he always did, getting stiff as a board, except this time he did not blush and get all flustered like usual. Instead he was pale and looked like he was barely holding himself together. You alright Gaki? Anko asked, releasing Naruto and noticing how he seemed to sag afterwards. Why yeah, Naruto said, closing his eyes and taking a deep breath. When he felt himself calm down he opened them again and gave Anko his typical grin, so I'm guessing there's a reason you came all this way to find little ol' me. Anko frowned as she watched Naruto for a moment. He seemed tenser than before. Shaking her head she decided not to bother with it, it wasn't any of her business. Well, Kakashi's been so busy bragging about you to the other Jonin in the lounge, I figured I had to see you and figure out what the Cyclops seemed to be so proud of. He's bragging about me? Naruto asked, blinking a bit. That Kakashi would brag about him was surprising. Well, Team 7, Anko corrected, but mostly you. He says you've improved quite a bit and that you were an integral part on your first mission out of the village. Once again she frowned when Naruto winced. Are you okay Gaki? Why yeah, of course I am, Naruto lied, not ready to let Anko in on what happened. Why wouldn't I be? Anko's frown deepened, because you're not acting like yourself. Did something happen on the mission? I really don't want to talk about my recent mission Anko, Naruto said, looking away from Anko. Why? Anko asked, sounding confused. I want to know what happened. Kakashi won't tell us anything about the specifics, but I said, I don't feel like talking about it. Naruto glared at her as he spoke. Anko was taken aback for a second as a look of rage flashed through his eyes, but there were many other emotions as well, though they were too fast for her to pick up. Sorry, Naruto said, sagging in his seat a bit as a concerned Ayame brought him another bowl of ramen. Please just drop it. Anko sighed. Well, I suppose I can. She looked over at him with a smirk, trying to get a lighter mood in the atmosphere, but only because you're my favorite Gaki. Naruto gave her a smile. Thanks Anko. Finishing up his ramen, Naruto paid for his meal. I'll see you later Anko, he said, tossing a wave over his shoulder. Anko once again frowned. There was something wrong with Naruto. Normally she would not bother with something like this, but she was concerned by the way he had acted. She was going to find out what was wrong with him. 1 month later. Naruto turned around and grinned as he saw Haku walk into the clearing. Hey Haku-chan, how are you doing? He blinked when he noticed that her chest was decidedly larger than last time. Haku, noticing where he was looking, blushed and, despite being fully clothed, covered her chest. You know, it's kind of embarrassing when you look at me like that. Huh? Naruto looked at her face before his eyes widened as his face took on the hue of a tomato. I'm so sorry. I was surprised because of yesterday and all. And Haku giggled as Naruto got completely flustered. It's okay, I suppose it would be surprising. I usually wear chest bindings to hide them. Oh, Naruto said in realization. So, about we start again? He asked sheepishly. How are you doing? Haku brought a hand to her mouth as she giggled from Naruto's behavior. I'm doing well, thank you. And what about you? Did you have a nice sleep? I am sorry. She gave him a brilliant smile. Know that even if I can't go with you, I will always love you. And with that she disappeared in a burst of speed. Haku, Naruto mumbled, staring wide-eyed at the spot that Haku had left from. Haku. Haku. Naruto shot up in his bed, his eyes wide and his breathing far heavier than it should have been for something like sleeping, or even training. He pressed a hand to his face and closed his eyes. His face, and most likely his entire body, was covered in sweat. It was that dream again. The same one he had been having since the battle at the bridge. How many times have I had this nightmare? 31. I've had this nightmare every night since Haku-chan's death. Naruto shook his head and looked around, his eyes blurry and unfocused because of the tears that were in them. Turning his head, Naruto looked at the clock. 5:30 a.m. That's earlier than the last time I woke up from this nightmare. Was it yesterday? The blonde wondered. I doubt I'll be going back to sleep now, Naruto mumbled before sighing and getting up. He headed into the bathroom, taking off his boxers on the way. Closing the door behind him, Naruto walked towards the shower, turning on the water. As soon as the seal on the shower head sensed the pressure, it began to glow with a soft green light as it began to use the ambient nature chakra around the village to heat the water. Stepping in, Naruto groaned as he stepped into the shower. Pressing his hands against the wall, Naruto hunched over, letting the water hit his back. He stayed that way for nearly an hour, trying to soothe his frayed emotions. After a while he stepped out of the shower, grabbed a towel and went back into his room. He looked out of his window as he changed into his shinobi clothing. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting a light golden red glow across the sky. I guess I'll just start doing my own training, Naruto frowned as he tried to think of what he should do. I suppose I could try to improve my elemental affinity. I'll have to come up with my own exercises though, cutting a leaf doesn't seem to be doing anything anymore. He shrugged off his thoughts and decided to wait until he got to the training ground to figure out what to do. Hyaaa. Naruto gave a loud shout as he brought his bow staff onto the head of one of the giant spiders in the Forest of Death, lacing his staff with wind chakra and using it as a bludgeoning factor to smash the spider's head. It was late in the afternoon and Naruto had been in the Forest of Death for nearly 3 hours already, fighting any of the animals and plants he could find. Most of the time he would take on the spiders, however, since they were more numerous than the others and bred like rabbits, though he had also scuffled with a few of the tigers. He jumped back just as another spider came in and tried to impale him with its legs. Naruto thrust out his hand and used a free-form wind blade to slice into the creature's eyes. It was something new he was working on, using free-form wind attacks rather than ninjutsu. It was a theory he came up with, that if his control over wind was good enough, he would not need hand seals to use a jutsu and instead rely on pure manipulation of the element. Though since it didn't kill the spider, or even get close to killing it, he knew it would require a lot of work to complete. Still, the creature reared its head back and let out a pained screech. Using the distraction, Naruto closed the distance and slammed his staff into the spider's now unprotected belly. He used wind chakra to enhance the amount of blunt force trauma done from the blow, cracking the creature's carapace and also sending it flying off the tree branch and into the forest below. Seeing several more of the creatures coming towards him, Naruto put his staff away and began doing hand seals. There were a lot more hand seals than usual, about 50 all total, since this was his most powerful wind jutsu and one he had just recently learned. Fuden. Kamikaze no Jutsu, Divine Wind Jutsu. A huge gale force of cutting winds shot out from Naruto, slicing anything that got within its perimeter apart. Said perimeter was fairly small, being about 30 feet, since he did not have much control over the technique. And the winds could not cut all the way through the trees, however the spiders that had been about to get near him got diced up just fine. Naruto panted a bit as he looked around the clearing, and noticed that the area was officially spider-free. He nodded to himself as he replayed the effects of the jutsu in his mind, trying to see where he needed to improve. You know, that's a pretty nasty jutsu. Naruto whirled around to see Anko standing on a branch several meters above him, her arms crossed under her breasts and a rare serious expression on her face. Anko, Naruto greeted, something I can help you with. Anko jumped off the branch she was on and landed next to Naruto. You can start by telling me why you're avoiding me. Naruto stiffened a bit but otherwise maintained his composure. I haven't been avoiding you. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't give me that crap Gaki, Anko scowled at him. I tried finding you in your usual training field, and all of your clones told me you're not there. I tried searching for you in the Forest of Death before, but you never showed yourself. Hell, I even went up to Training Ground 9 to see the spandex wearing wonders and that little chick you seem to be fond of. You weren't there either. Anko leaned into him with a threatening gaze. I haven't been able to find you for an entire month. And it was only luck I ran into now, so why don't you tell me why you're avoiding me, or I swear the next thing you'll feel is my snakes biting your ass. I can't. Naruto shook his head, not wanting to break down again. He had done that more than enough times in Nami no Kuni and did not want to do it now. Anko sighed in annoyance. Damn it Gaki, you know how frustrating you are sometimes. Naruto turned his back to her and was about to walk off when Anko spoke again. You know I talked with the Sandame. Naruto stiffened. He told me about your last mission. Look, I don't blame you for being all hurt and whatnot. Fuck, I'd probably all hurt if all that shit happened to me too. But this is the world we live in, and you need to move the fuck on, or quit being a shinobi. Naruto turned to her, his lips set in a thin line. You went behind my back to get this info on me. Because I was worried about you Gaki. Anko defended herself, not believing that the kid was actually getting angry at her. Because you haven't been talking to me or anyone else for an entire month. You've been avoiding everyone like the plague. Even that scarecrow Kakashi is getting worried and that's saying something. Naruto winced a little bit at that, but his face reset its scowl soon after. I don't have to answer to you. You're not my. He stopped, finding that he could not say mother. He didn't even know who his own mother was, much less what having one would be like. He shook his head and started again. You're not my boss, so I don't have to answer you. He turned around to leave, but several snakes wrapped around him and lifted him off the ground. Hey, what the fuck? Let me go you crazy bitch. Naruto shouted as he tried to get himself loose. It didn't work as the snakes constricted, making him lose his breath and wince in pain as his ribs creaked and compressed in on themselves. They brought Naruto back around so that he was facing a very angry Anko. You better damn well believe you're answering to me. Anko's snakes brought Naruto so close that their noses were almost touching. To anyone else it probably would have almost seemed intimate. But with the snakes crushing his ribs, Anko's eyes glaring at him in anger, and the sound of her teeth grinding, Naruto knew that was not the case. I may not have been friends with you for long, but we are friends, and if you don't tell me what's wrong so I can fix it, I swear Kami is my fucking witness, I will beat the shit out of you. Naruto tried to laugh but it came out somewhere between a chuckle, a sob, and a pained groan. Naruto shook his head. Sighing, Anko put Naruto back on the ground and her snakes dispersed. Gaki, I already told you I know what happened. You need to learn to move on. I get that you fell in love with this chick, I understand that. But seriously, you need to let it go and move on. I don't want to let it go. Naruto growled as he looked up, his tears no longer able to contain themselves. Haku-chan was the only person who ever showed me any love. She gave me more happiness than I thought I would ever get. Even after she learned about the damn fox in my gut. So you're saying I don't care about you? Asked Anko in a mild voice. That's completely different and you know it. Naruto countered. You're right, it is different, Anko said with a shrug. But that doesn't mean I don't care. I've accepted you, nine-tailed fuzzy, and all right. But that's, Naruto looked down at his feet as he shook his head. I don't want to lose anyone precious to me ever again. So you're going to push us away? Anko asked in an incredulous tone. Do you realize how stupid you sound right now? I thought you were smart. Naruto grit his teeth. That's not. And if you don't want to lose others who are important to you, then that just means you need to get stronger, Anko continued. That's the question I think you really need to ask yourself is what you think Haku would want you to do. Anko said, her voice was far more quiet than normal, showing just how serious she was. I think you're so afraid of someone replacing your memory of this Haku girl that you're trying to distance yourself from others so you don't get over her. Naruto winced, mostly because Anko had hit the nail right on the head. While Anko was the first female to be nice to him, and Tenten was actually the first friend his age, neither of them had given him what Haku had, and he felt like he would be betraying her memory if he allowed himself to get close to either of them. Do you think Haku would want you to be like this? From what you told the Sandame, she would probably stick you with Senbon or something, Anko said. Naruto, in spite of himself, let out a small laugh, even though it was strained. Yeah, I suppose she would. Now are you gonna be all Uchiha emo brooder on me? Asked Anko. I wasn't that bad, Naruto defended himself, only to stop at the deadpanned look Anko was giving him. Okay, so, maybe I was a little emo there. Kid, I think I saw a brood of fangirls following you on your way here because they mistook you for the Uchiha, Anko said, grinning as he scowled. His scowl gave way to a smile as he surprised Anko and gave her a hug. Thanks Anko Ne-chan. Since when am I a Ne-chan? Asked Anko in an embarrassed voice. Since now, Naruto mumbled as he gripped her tighter. Despite her lack of moral scruples, Anko blushed in embarrassment at the fact that someone was calling her Ne-chan. Having been alone most of her life after Orochimaru abandoned her, she was not used to others being this close to her when it was not her messing with someone. Even more embarrassing was that Naruto had called her Ne-chan, essentially stating she was close enough to be considered his family, an honor only her friend Yuhi Kurenai ever gave her. It's alright Gaki, Anko patted him on the back and tried to play it cool. They stayed like that for a while until the snake mistress of Konoha began to relax, which was a few seconds before Naruto decided to ruin the moment. Who knew that Konoha's snake bitch was such a softie? Naruto said with an unseen grin. Kid, if you tell anyone about this, I swear I'll feed you to my snakes, Anko threatened, actually feeling the blonde's mind turning. You're no fun, Naruto pouted as he pulled away. I bet people would really change their opinions of you if they realized you had such a soft, gooey center on the inside. Gaki, I'm warning you, Anko threatened. In fact, maybe I should tell Kakashi just how soft you really are. Naruto grinned as he finally saw Anko blush. Meanwhile, Anko cursed at herself for ever thinking that teaching the Gaki about the birds and the bees was a good idea. Gaki, you better start running, Anko warned, her hair overshadowing her face. 'Cause I'm gonna feed you to my snakes. Feeling revitalized from his talk with Anko, Naruto just grinned as he took off. You'll have to catch me first. You fucking brat. Kuchio's no jutsu, summoning jutsu. There was a giant puff of smoke and Naruto suddenly found a very irate Anko on a very large snake chasing him. Sick'em Sasha. Eat the bastard alive. Knowing that Anko might actually have her summon eat him, he took off even faster than before, dropping his resistance seals and weights. Without looking back, he blasted through the forest, Anko hot on his heels. The next day, it was Saturday in the afternoon when Naruto entered the Higurashi weapons store. He noticed with some relief mixed in with disappointment that Tenten wasn't there. Disappointment because he missed her, and relief because he had no desire to get any kunai or senbon stuck in his ass. Instead, her father Kato was sitting at the register. Said man looked up as soon as the door chimed. Naruto. He greeted, standing up and moving over the blonde. How have you been? I've been good, Kato-san, Naruto replied with a small bow of his head. You know, I haven't seen you in my store for quite a while. The comment was made casually enough, but Naruto sensed an underlying meaning that made him shiver. My daughter has been awfully worried about you for the past month. Naruto winced. I was having some personal issues that kept me from others. Kato looked at him for a moment before giving a nod of understanding. I suggest you speak with her sometime soon. All right, Naruto said, slightly intimidated by the man's stare. As if summoned by their conversation, Tenten walked right into the door. Dad. I'm home from. She trailed off as her eyes landed on Naruto. You. She stomped over to him. Naruto paled and began to back up as Tenten began poking him in the chest. I haven't seen you for over a month. And you're just coming in here now, when I'm not working. Naruto found himself backed up against the wall with nowhere to go as Tenten continued poking him. Thankfully there were no weapons on this one or he was sure this would have been painful. I had to find out that you had returned from some lady named Anko because she had been looking for you. Do you know how worried I was when I found out that you were essentially ignoring me? Tenten, Naruto tried but Tenten cut him off. Don't you try to talk your way out of this, Uzumaki Naruto. You have a lot of making up to do for getting me so worried. Tenten placed her hands on her hips and glared at him. Well. Naruto felt sweat trickle down his forehead as he stared at those angry brown eyes. He had no idea that Tenten could be even scarier than Anko at times. Well, what do you, want me to do to make it up to you? Tenten frowned for a second before smiling. Naruto instantly paled as he recognized that smile from the one time he had let her use ranged weapons during a spar. Kami, save me, Naruto mumbled, crying anime tears as Tenten began dragging him to a training ground. Chapter 14. New Meetings, New Enemies. 2 months later. Taju Kage Bushin no Jutsu. Naruto watched as a massive cloud of smoke erupted in the clearing. When it cleared, Naruto nodded as he saw 300 clones standing around and awaiting orders. Alright, I want 100 of you to begin working on our wind affinity. Since we haven't been able to find a waterfall with a good ledge to stand on, I want you to start cutting a rock using wind chakra. When you manage to split a rock down the middle, try cutting a rock into 4 pieces and increase the number of cuts you can make from there. It had been one of the new wind exercises he had come up with for himself. Naruto had read that the next step after cutting a leaf was to cut a waterfall. Since there were no waterfalls that he had found that could be properly utilized for his wind training, he had decided to refine his cutting ability through other means. The first thing he had done was make shapes in the leaves that he would cut. Simple ones had first, squares, circles and the like, and then more complex shapes like animals and people. This was the next training method Naruto had invented that he felt would be another good step in his wind elemental training. He had actually gotten the general idea from a book he had read. It was a much older book that he had found when looking for theories on connecting to one's chakra through meditation exercises. The book he had found, which was a book from Suna on some of the older methods of wind manipulation theories, had claimed that a master of the wind element should be able to cut straight through a boulder using wind chakra. Not only that, but the cut would be so smooth that the entire surface on either side would be completely flat. He had at first tried to cut a boulder, but soon realized that with the level his wind manipulation such a complex and difficult task was next to impossible. So he went on to the next best thing, cutting a rock, which he felt that while not as good, would still be a major boon in his elemental training. After all, if he could cut a rock into several pieces, then it should be much easier to cut flesh and bones. Boss. The clones all saluted and took off. Naruto turned to his other 2 groups. I want one group of you to split up into groups of 25. One of you will continue on the more advanced form of Muay Thai, another work on Goken, the third group will work on our Bujutsu, and the last will try to combine the Taijutsu styles we know into a usable form. Yosh. The clones all gave him the nice guy pose before they went off and began working with a Guy-and-Lee-like fanaticism. Turning to the last group, Naruto began to give his last set of orders. You guys have the most important task of all. I want you to continue working on our chakra control. His chakra control had gotten better but was still, and probably always would be, an issue that he would need to constantly work on. We've gotten up to 5 leaves on one hand, so start adding leaves to the other. I want at least 2 added by the end of this session. And rather than stand on the water's surface, I want you to walk. Got it, boss. The clone said as they raced off. Naruto looked down at his arm, where his training seal was located. Right now it was on level 3, a feat the whiskered blonde had managed to accomplish around 3 weeks ago. Due to the massive increase in resistance that each level came with, it had taken a lot more time for him to be capable of using the 3rd level of resistance than the first 2. However, like with all things, time, sweat and hard work had finally enabled him to use this level with no required chakra. And since he no longer needed chakra, that meant it was time to increase the level. Gritting his teeth, Naruto began channeling chakra into the seal, feeling the resistance on his body increase. He watched as the kanji on his arm shifted from the number 3 to the number 4. With the seal increase finished, Naruto began to trudge through his workout routine, relying heavily on chakra to keep him moving as he fought against the resistance placed on his body. After his daily workout, Naruto began to make his way towards Team 7's standard meeting spot. Walking onto the bridge where his team usually met, Naruto saw that his 2 teammates were both already there doing what they usually did. Sakura was staring at Sasuke, no doubt wondering how to get a date with the raven-haired Uchiha. And Sasuke was leaning against the rail of the bridge, staring off into space, or as Naruto called it, practicing his brooding poses and trying to come up with ways to kill his older brother. Mourning Sakura, Sasuke Tem, he greeted the pair, even if they did not really get along all that well. He still felt it was appropriate to be nice to them, at least on the occasions he did not feel like messing with them. Sasuke looked at Naruto before giving his usual reply of, "HN," and then turning away to look off the side of the bridge. "Naruto baka, don't call Sasuke-kun that," Sakura shouted at the blonde. Thankfully she no longer tried to punch him, having realized that he was no longer going to put up with it. Something she had actually started to get bitter about, which really only increased her anger at the blonde. Naruto sighed as he moved to the opposite side his teammates were on. He had thought that they would have bonded at least a little bit after their A-ranked mission. However, as soon as they got back to Konoha it was the same as always. Sasuke, having gotten his Sharingan sometime during the Battle of the Bridge, had started ignoring him and everyone else and was quite possibly even more arrogant than before. It also didn't help that the few times he had not ignored the blonde was merely to either glare at him or try and goad him into a fight. Sakura of course had not changed at all, since she had not really played any significant role on the battle in Nami, or the mission in general, and had more or less taken a back seat to the whole thing and was not even conscious during the blonde's cubified rampage. Naturally, because of this she had not been as affected as the others were, whether it be mentally, emotionally or physically. So she still basically ignored Naruto unless he said something bad about her, Sasuke-kun. The only difference now was that she no longer tried to hit him. Sitting down, the blonde pulled out two books. The first was the book he had been reading on Fuinjutsu created by the Yondaime, titled Intermediate Ceiling Level 3. The second one was a book of his own creation, holding all of the notes he had written down from this book and previous ones he had read, as well as the few notes on seals he had gotten from some of the more advanced books when he could not find something he was looking for in the previous ones. For the next half an hour he began comparing and writing down more notes. "Yo!" Naruto looked up to see Kakashi appear in his standard shunshin. "You're late," Sakura yelled as she pointed at him. "Sorry, I forgot to set my alarm today, so I woke up late," Kakashi replied with a lazy tone. Sakura's face turned red as she listened to her sensei's lame excuse, "Liar." Naruto put his book away and stood up with a small sigh as he stretched and listened to his back make a satisfying crack. He was so glad he had made more cage bunchins to train while he waited for his sensei, otherwise he would never be able to get all of his training done. "So what are we doing today, sensei?" he asked. Kakashi gave Naruto an eye smile. "I'm glad you asked, Naruto. We have an exciting mission today, so let's get going." Team 7 left the Hokage's tower after completing the mission the Hokage had given them. It was really nothing more than walking the Inuzuka dogs while another team cleaned the kennels. Not much of a mission in the three genins' opinions, but there was not much they could do about it. Kakashi had refused to go on another C rank since their mission to Nami no Kuni had been what could be considered one huge clusterfuck. And so ever since the mission to protect Tazuna, these kinds of missions had been all they were doing. At least Kakashi had helped him a little more on his training. It wasn't much since Sasuke had activated his Sharingan. Usually the silver-haired Jonin would simply create a cage bunshin and have it spar with Naruto. Still, it was more than he had gotten before the mission, and since he had yet to even land a hit on the clone, it was good enough for the moment. "Man, I can't believe we're stuck doing these boring-ass missions again," Naruto groaned, his disposition having gone back to being his normal chipper self after his talk with Anko. For the most part at least, there were of course times when the blonde would get quiet and introspective, and sometimes a small flicker of the painful emotions he had felt after Haku's death flashed across his eyes. But he was determined to continue pushing forward, as he was sure that Haku would stick his ass with Senbon if they met in the afterlife and she found out he had been moping around after her death. That, and he wanted to be a person that Haku would be proud of, a person who would give their all to protect the people precious to them. At least we didn't have to clean the kennel, Naruto thought with a sigh. I don't know if my nose could have handled that again. Now Naruto, we can't do a C rank mission every time. There are protocols we have to follow, you know, Kakashi chided as he flipped a page of his book. I know the protocols, damn it. I've read all the Kami Forsaken books that talk about the requirements necessary to tackle higher ranked missions, as well as why genin are normally assigned these pathetic D ranks in the first place. Naruto glared at his sensei as the man giggled perversely, seemingly ignoring him. We have twice the prerequisite number for a higher ranked mission. We've been doing these D ranks for 3 months. I think you're just too damn lazy to go on a mission that would take us out of the village. This statement definitely rang true. While Kakashi may be more helpful now than he was before the mission to protect Tazuna, the man was still one of the laziest people he had ever met, barring Shikamaru. Shut up, Naruto baka! Sakura yelled, angry that her blonde teammate was interrupting her from her Sasuke watching with all his complaining. This coming from the girl who likes to screech when she talks. Naruto ignored the pathetic excuse for killing intent coming from Sakura. I bet even the Tem over there wants a better mission, Naruto pointed to Sasuke. You see, he's just dying for some kind of action, Naruto said. Tem, you're a riveting conversationalist. Whatever, Sakura scoffed before turning to her crush with what she hoped was a cute yet coy expression. I'm so glad today's mission is over, aren't you, Sasuke-kun? Sasuke just glanced at her at the corner of his eyes, before turning around and ignoring her, not even deigning to give the girl his standard one-syllable grunt. Sakura put her head down for a second before trying to brighten up. Say, Sasuke-kun, would you like to go out on a date with me? Sasuke grunted as he turned to face her. Why would I want to date a weak little girl like you? Sakura took a step back as her eyes widened in surprise and hurt. If you've got time to be asking me out on a date, then you should use that time to become stronger. The raven-haired genin turned away. Even Naruto has gotten better than you. You're even more useless than he used to be. Sakura tried to say, a depressed look on her face and tears beginning to form in her eyes. However, Sasuke had already started ignoring her and was walking away. Naruto looked up from his book to see what had happened before sighing and going back to his book. While he did not really approve of Sasuke being so harsh, even if he no longer put up with Sakura trying to hit him for every little thing, he knew that she still did not know what it meant to be a ninja and needed some kind of kick in the ass in order to get herself in gear. Walking behind the group, book in hand, was Kakashi, who was watching the group with an expression of concern, not that anyone could see it due to nearly 3/4 of his face being covered. It seems their teamwork has gotten even worse than before. It's almost as if the mission to Nami never happened. Sakura yells at Naruto and tries to get a date with Sasuke, completely neglecting training outside of the team. Sasuke ignores everyone unless it's to glare at Naruto, or to pick a fight. I thought awakening his Sharingan would be a good thing, but he only seems to have gotten more arrogant. And Naruto. Kakashi glanced at his blonde student. I can't even tell what he's thinking anymore. He's gotten even more sarcastic than before and seems to run off at the mouth every chance he gets. Not only that, but he seems to have picked up a sadistic streak. Though, I'm sure I can thank Anko for that, since the two seem to be hanging out even more now than they had before. The elite Jonin sighed, not really sure how to fix this problem. Looking up, he saw a hawk flying over Konoha. Okay, I think that's enough for today, Kakashi said, getting the attention of his 3 genin. I have to go submit a mission report. Yeah. With that, the duster-haired Jonin disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto watched as Kakashi disappeared within a shunshin. Turning around, he saw that Sasuke had already left, and Sakura was walking away with a depressed look on her face. I guess I'll go do some training of my own, Naruto decided. He was just about to start walking when he heard a noise. Turning around, he saw a square box behind him with a rock texture painted on it. It also had 2 eye holes in the front. Already knowing who was under that box, Naruto just sighed and began to walk away, hearing the box follow after him as he turned a corner. When the box followed, it stopped, not seeing the whiskered marked blonde anywhere. Konohamaru-kun, where did the boss go? Asked a female voice from the box. I don't know, it's like he disappeared. Konohamaru exclaimed. They were just about to lift the box up when Naruto appeared behind them. Grinning, he sat down on them, listening to their muffled grunts and shouts of surprise. Hey, who's on top of us? Get off. I think my glasses broke. What's going on? Naruto chuckled. You know, if you keep using these shitty-ass disguises, you'll never get the upper hand on me. Huh. I'm not surprised you saw through our disguise, boss. Came Konohamaru's muffled response. Now can you get off? I suppose, Naruto said as he stood up and moved to the front as the box exploded. Cough, I think we used too much gunpowder. Cough, came a nasally voice. Naruto gave the kids a nonchalant look that would have made Kakashi proud. So what do you guys want? The three kids looked up at him before they broke into their introduction. Hey, I'm Moegi, and I'm the sassiest kunoichi in school. The girl with orange pigtails and perpetual blush said as she made an odd pose, standing on one leg and raising a single hand in the air. And I like algebra, I'm Udon, said the boy with the bowl cut, glasses and permanent runny nose. He too took a pose beside Moegi, crouching down low and crossing his arms. And I'm the strongest ninja in the village, Konohamaru. Konohamaru said as he made a pose in front of them, grinning as he pointed a thumb at himself. And together were the Konohamaru Ninja Corps. The three said in unison. Yeah, I know, you guys have done this like 30 times already, this month alone. Naruto said, crossing his arms as he looked at the trio, so what do you want? You promised you'd play ninja with us today, boss. Konohamaru stated as he crossed his arms. Naruto looked up at the sky, tapping his chin in thought. Did I? I don't remember saying anything like that. You did, boss. Come on. Please play ninja with us. The three started giving him the puppy dog eyes. You know, I've been giving that look to Oji-san before you three were even born, it won't work on me. Naruto grinned as he watched their crestfallen expressions. He actually rather liked the trio whom he had taken to calling the Chibi Brigade, they always seemed to brighten his day. But I suppose I've got enough time to play ninja with you. Ah, a ninja. Playing ninja, the group turned to see an utterly depressed-looking Sakura walking towards them. That's so stupid. Naruto sighed at the girl's attitude, even though he had been ignoring her to the best of his abilities. She was always like this, always making fun of or trying to belittle him for everything he did. I suppose Sasuke Tem just told her off again, the blonde concluded. She seemed to come over to make fun of him whenever Sasuke put her down, which happened every time she tried to get a date. Meaning pretty much every day, seemingly seeking assurance from him like she used to. Hey boss, who is this? Asked Konohamaru as he looked at the girl, scratching the back of his head. I know. Hey boss, is she your? He trailed off as he held up his pinky finger and wiggled it. Sakura's look instantly turned irate, and if it wasn't for the fact that Naruto no longer let her hit him, she would have socked him so hard that the blonde would have been implanted in a wall. Naruto shook his head. No, Konohamaru, she isn't. In fact, we're not even friends. The closest thing I can call her is my teammate, and I use the term loosely since we don't really act like a team. For some reason the whiskered blonde's words seemed to depress Sakura even more. Sasuke-kun thought she was beneath him, and Naruto. And now Naruto was saying that she was basically just someone he worked with and not someone he liked, or even considered as a friend. I suppose what they say is true. You never know what you're missing until it's gone. She could no longer deny the fact that Naruto had been one of the main factors of her confidence back in the academy. Whenever something happened, whether it was Sasuke's continuous rejections, or something Ino or one of the other girls did or said, Naruto had always been there making her feel better about herself. Now he no longer cared about her, and so she no longer had that confidence-boosting factor to help her deal with the problems she had in her own self-confidence issues. This in turn brought her disposition down even more. Well, that's good, boss, 'cause you can seriously do better than this chick. Konohamaru said, I mean, just look at her. That pink hair is kind of weird, and can you see her forehead? It's huge. Naruto looked at Sakura nervously as he saw her now murderous expression. Hey Konohamaru, how fast can you run? Pretty fast, boss. Why? Asked Konohamaru as he scratched the back of his head. Naruto pointed over to Sakura, who was currently stomping over to them and cracking her knuckles. That's why. I suggest you start running. Konohamaru gulped as he saw the expression on Sakura's face as she cracked her knuckles. Thanks for the report, Haruka said to Kakashi as he sat in the missions room. He read over the report a bit before putting it away. He frowned for a moment as he looked up at the elite Jonin. So how is Naruto? Is he doing well with his comrades? Naruto is actually doing rather well. Kakashi replied. It was true enough, the boy had gotten better after the first month being back, both physically with his training and emotionally. Though he still wouldn't talk about his experience, he had started opening up more, and even asked Kakashi for advice in some of his training. That's good. I've been so busy lately that I haven't been able to see him since you guys got back from your C-ranked mission, Haruka said. I'm a little worried. I wouldn't worry about Naruto too much, Kakashi replied with the same air of nonchalance he always held. Naruto's a little quieter since we came back from our C rank, but other than that he's doing fine. In fact, he's improved quite a bit. I think pretty soon he may even be strong enough to surpass the person he respects the most, you. Though I'm pretty sure he already has, but considering he asked me not to reveal anything about his skills to anyone, I'm not going to say anything. Is that so? Haruka asked with a grin, pleased to hear that Naruto was doing well. Boss, what are we gonna do? It's right behind us. Konohamaru shouted as he, his three friends and Naruto ran. The young Sarutobi looked back to see Sakura still chasing after them, spurring him to run faster. Well, why don't we just consider this training? Yeah, that's a good idea, this is a part of your training. Naruto said, not in the least bit tired or worried about the rampaging pink-haired girl behind him. Training, Konohamaru yelled as he looked behind him. He paled as he saw the pink-haired demon getting closer. How can this be considered training? Why, we're testing your speed and endurance, of course, Naruto said with a laugh. Now, run faster. Konohamaru did run faster, passing the others as he turned around a corner and continued running, right until he smashed into someone and fell down to the ground. Ow, Konohamaru rubbed his face as he tried to rub away the stinging sensation. After a couple of seconds he looked up to see what he had run into, and saw that it was a guy wearing a black jumpsuit with a pair of cat ears on his head, and some kind of odd makeup on his face with an odd oblong-shaped thing on his back, wrapped in bandages. Next to him stood a girl with sandy blonde hair done up in 4 pigtails. She was wearing a black and white battle kimono with some mesh leggings on her left ankle, while the other was higher up on her thigh. She had her headband hanging loosely on her neck, and a red sash wrapped around her waist. There was also a large battle fan attached to her back. The headbands they were wearing was the symbol for Sunagaku no Sato, the village hidden in the sand, which was a ninja village allied to Konoha. That hurt you, little punk, the teen wearing the cat ears said. Bending down he picked up Konohamaru by his scarf, forcing the kid to grab onto his hand. I think I need to teach you a lesson about watching where you're going. The girl walked up behind him and shook her head in annoyance. Kankuro, just drop him, you know we're going to get in trouble if he shows up. Relax, Temari. He won't show up for a while yet. Kankuro looked back at her, before turning his attention back to Konohamaru. Besides, this kid needs to learn not to disrespect his betters. Put me down, you stupid makeup-wearing freak. Konohamaru yelled, if you don't my knee-san's gonna kick your ass. It's war paint, you little shit. Kankuro said with a snarl, I'll teach you to mess with your betters. He was just about to hit Konohamaru when another voice spoke up. You know, if you're trying to look threatening you're doing a piss-poor job of it. The two looked up to see Naruto standing there, and despite the light nearly conversational tone he spoke in, was glaring the Suna genin in the cat suit. A few seconds later Moegi, Udon and Sakura came up behind him and watched the small confrontation. Though that might have something to do with the makeup. Now I suggest you put the boy down. Temari and Kankuro looked over at Naruto, one of them scowled while the other blushed. Oh, looks like a local cutie, Temari eyed the blonde up and down. These look like leaf genin, Kankuro thought to himself with a small sneer, maybe I should play with them for a while instead. When Naruto did not receive the reply he was looking for from either of the Suna genin he scowled, hey makeup boy. I said you might want to let him go. If you're not going to listen to me, perhaps I could persuade you better by putting my foot off in your ass. That seemed to get a reaction as Kankuro scowled and Temari giggled. It's not makeup. It's war paint. Kankuro yelled out. Naruto grinned, so says the transvestite walking around in a cat suit. That does it, Kankuro said as he grit his teeth. He tossed Konohamaru away and reached behind his back to the large mummified-looking object. Naruto disappeared in a burst of speed as he rushed behind the young Sarutobi and caught Konohamaru, setting the boy down before he turned to glare on Kankuro. Sarutobi looked at all the ninja who had assembled into his spy room where all the meetings of great importance were held. Many of them were jonin for the genin teams, however there were also a few chunin who would be serving as proctors, as well as the few jonin who would proctor for the event he had called them for. I'm sure you are all wondering why I have called you here, the aging Sandaime said. You've all assembled for one reason. It should be obvious by some of the members here. So it's that time already, Kakashi asked rhetorically. It's already been reported to the other countries. I saw some of them in the village. Genma, a Tokubetsu Jonin wearing standard Jonin clothes, a bandana-style headband, and a senbon in his mouth commented. Kurenai decided to ask the obvious question, so when is it? In a week, Sarutobi announced, causing several members to mumble about it starting sooner than they expected. I'll announce it properly 7 days from now. On the first day of the 7th moon, the chunin selection exams will commence. Sarutobi frowned for a moment before pressing on. Before we get to the announcement on who will be participating among our teams, I have some information I wish to tell you. It seems that both Suna and Kumo have sent a Jinchuriki here to participate in the exams. This caused a lot of the ninja there to burst in outrage. Many saying it was not fair for nations to send such monsters into the exams. A burst of killing intent from Sarutobi shut them up. While I can understand how you feel about having such powerful ninja in the exams, I would suggest you refrain from speaking about them in that way. He stressed the word ninja when he spoke, making his opinion on Jinchuriki known and telling them he would not tolerate people giving into their irrational hatred. In any event, it is not illegal for a Jinchuriki to participate in the exams, so long as they are a registered genin. So there is nothing any of us can do about it. I merely informed you so that you are aware of what your genin will be up against in the exams. How accurate is this information, Hokage-sama? Asked Kakashi. I received the information several days ago via Jiraiya's spy network, Sarutobi said. He had only just managed to get a hold of the man because of it, something that irked the Sandaime even though there was nothing he could do about the man's elusiveness at the moment. Sarutobi took a long puff on his pipe before continuing, now, I would like to hear from those who are watching over the new genin first. Kakashi, Kurenai and Asuma stepped forward. Kakashi was on the right, with Kurenai in the middle and Asuma on the left. Kakashi, Kurenai, Asuma well. Sarutobi asked, are there any genin you would like to enter into this year's chunin selection exam? I don't believe I have to tell you, but after a genin completes a total of at least 32 missions, he or she is eligible for the chunin exams. Of course normally a genin needs more than 4 times that number of missions before being considered for selection, but it is your choice. Now, starting with Kakashi. Kakashi kept up his normal lazy composure as he began speaking. The Kakashi led Team 7, Uchiha Sasuke, Haruno Sakura and Uzumaki Naruto under the name of Hitaki Kakashi. I nominate them to take the chunin selection exams. This caused a load of mutters to spread out among the other ninja. Being in the middle, Kurenai went next. The Kurenai led Team 8, Hyuga Hinata, Inazuka Kiba and Aburame Shino under the name Yuhi Kurenai. I nominate my team for the chunin selection exams. Asuma sighed as he took a puff of his cigarette before speaking. The Asuma led Team 10, Yamanaka Ino, Nara Shikamaru and Akamichi Choji under the name Sarutobi Asuma. I nominate my team for the chunin selection exams. The mutterings got even louder at hearing all 3 jonin leaders for the new genin had nominated their teams, something that had not happened in decades. However, one person had something to say about this. Hold on just a second. Iruka stepped forward. Sarutobi looked at the scarred chunin. What is it, Iruka? Hokage-sama, please let me have a word. I may be speaking out of place, but these 9 genin were all my students at the academy. Of course they are all very talented, but it's still far too early for them to take the exam. They need more experience. I just can't understand their reasoning. Especially with 2 Jinchuriki coming to the exams. I became a chunin when I was 6 years younger than Naruto, Kakashi said, knowing who Iruka was really worried about. Naruto is nothing like you. Iruka shouted, making his true worry obvious. Are you trying to crush these kids? The chunin exam, Sue. Are you saying you don't have faith in Naruto's talents? Asked Kakashi, interrupting the chunin from his tangent. Iruka's eyes widened. That's. While Naruto may not be quite like me, he is an extremely talented shinobi that has even impressed me at times, Kakashi continued. Several eyes widened and a smattering of mumbles accompanied this announcement. It was obvious no one believed this statement, whether because of Naruto's status as the dead last, or the Kyuubi, Kakashi did not know nor care. Actually, it makes one wonder. He had always been considered the dead last, but ever since he had graduated his skills have skyrocketed thanks to getting one-on-one help. I have to question the competence of the academy staff for having neglected Naruto like they had. If he had received more help in the beginning, he may have already been a chunin by now, possibly even a jonin. Iruka winced at hearing that Naruto had progressed far faster now that he was out of the academy. He felt guilty about not helping the blonde until the day before he graduated, and if what Kakashi just said was true, then the blonde could already have been one of their most powerful ninja by now. Kakashi continued after giving people a few minutes to digest this new information. While I understand that you're worried, you have to understand that they are no longer under your control. That's enough, Kakashi, Kurenai said in an annoyed tone. No, it's not, Kakashi stated, and while his tone still sounded as lazy as always, there was a harder edge to it. They are no longer your students, Iruka, they are my soldiers. Enough, Sarutobi said, stemming any further argument from the pair. Iruka, I understand where you're coming from, but Kakashi is right. It is not your decision to decide whether or not they can compete. Iruka looked down in frustration, but he knew that the Sandame was right. I apologize for stepping out of line, Hokage-sama. Good. Now on to the next nominations. You're going to use Karasu here? Asked a surprised Temari. These brats need to be taught a lesson, Temari, Kankuro replied as he began to unravel the bandages. Before he could get too far, a rock hit him in the hand, making him drop the large object. Looking up, Sasuke glaring down at him, tossing another rock up and down in his hand. Great, another one of these brats shows up, Kankuro growled. Oh wow, it looks like Konoha has quite a monopoly on cuties. Temari thought as she looked between Naruto and Sasuke with a light blush. Get lost, creep, Sasuke crushed the rock in his hand. Naruto rolled his eyes, you're such a show-off, Tem. Kankuro growled as he held his now injured hand. He looked like he was about to continue making an ass of himself, when a new voice spoke up behind Sasuke. Kankuro, stop it. Everyone stiffened in surprise and turned their heads to see a boy with red hair and the kanji for love on his forehead. He was wearing a black short-sleeved shirt with a fishnet undershirt underneath that, along with matching black pants and sandals. Across his waist was a white sash and a brown leather belt, and another sash going across his chest that held a large gourd to his back. However, the thing that caught Naruto's attention the most were the large bags under his eyes, making him look something akin to a raccoon. Gaara, Kankuro stammered as he began to shake in fear. The blonde-haired girl did not seem to be doing much better. I didn't even notice him behind me. Sasuke's eyes widened a bit as he stared at the redhead. That kind of skill is at the level of a jonin like Kakashi. Odd, this kid is leaking killer intent like some kind of homicidal maniac, yet I couldn't sense him until he spoke. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the familiar feel of the Suna ninja's killing intent. There's something familiar about this one. I sense a presence I have not felt since. He shook his head. Damn it, I need to stop watching Star Wars. Kankuro, you're an embarrassment to our village. Have you forgotten why we came here? Gaara's arms remained crossed as he stared the other genin down. Kankuro paled considerably as he tried to stammer out an excuse. Well, you see, Gaara, they started it and I. Shut up, interrupted the redhead, or I'll kill you. Alright, I was totally out of line, Kankuro stuttered. Gaara disappeared in a swirl of sand, reappearing in between the blonde girl and Kankuro. He looked over at Naruto and increased his killing intent in an effort to frighten the blonde-haired genin, though he ended up raising an eyebrow when Naruto shrugged it off. My apologies for him being such a nuisance, he apologized eventually. Naruto gave a grin. Meh, it's all good. Though I would suggest you keep him on a leash, seeing as how he almost beat up the Hokage's grandson. Wars have started for less after all. Kankuro paled at the new knowledge, knowing he was going to get in trouble for doing something like this with their sensei. I'll be sure to keep that in mind. Gaara looked over at his two companions. Kankuro, Temari, were leaving. As the three ninja left, Sakura decided to make her presence known. Hold on a second. The three Suna ninja turned around to look at the pink-haired girl. While it's true that Suna and Konoha are allies, it's illegal for you to be in our nation without permission. So I have to ask, what are you doing in our village? Ah, you're so clueless, Naruto groaned, making everyone turn to him. It's obvious they're here for the chunin exams, or have you not noticed all of the foreign ninja who have been coming into Konoha recently? Sakura's face turned red with anger at having Naruto tell her up like that. The pink kid had been constantly upstaged by the blonde so far every time she had tried to say something smart. It was like he was trying to make her look bad in front of Sasuke-kun. She would have yelled at him, but Temari spoke up. The blonde cutie is correct. She pulled out her passport. We are here for the chunin exams. You really should pay more attention, or people will think you live under a rock. We've wasted enough time talking, let's go, Gaara said, getting annoyed by all the conversation. Hold on, what's your name? Sasuke asked the retreating figure. Who, me? Asked Temari with a light blush. Not you, the one with the gourd on his back. Sasuke corrected. My Sasuke, have you finally found someone who matches your wet dreams? Naruto asked with a grin. I always did wonder if you were into guys. Don't call Sasuke-kun gay, Naruto baka. Sakura shouted in anger, though on the inside she felt mortified at the thought that her Sasuke-kun might actually be into men. Oh no, what if he really is gay? Of course he isn't gay. That's just Naruto baka trying to get us to like him instead. Shanaru. The ever-delusional inner Sakura shouted. Dobi. Sasuke hissed through clenched teeth and a red face to match his anger and embarrassment. This had been something that had been happening more and more recently. Naruto seemed to have made a game out of taunting either him or Sakura, taking some kind of innate pleasure out of torturing them with words. It was something that pissed the raven-haired genin off to no end. Naruto smirked. What? You can't blame me for thinking that. All those girls in the academy threw themselves at you, and you completely ignored them. He gave a shrug. What am I supposed to think? Grinning, the blonde turned his attention to Temari. I apologize for my teammate being such an ass. He just doesn't know how to properly treat such a beautiful woman. Temari blushed, not actually used to someone calling her beautiful, or having the guts to do it in front of Gaara. It's alright. Naruto tilted his head to side as he saw Temari's face turn red. For a moment he wondered if he had said something wrong. Since his only real experience with women were Tenten, Anko and Haku, one of which liked to think of herself as one of the guys, another who took pleasure in making him squirm and training him, and the last one being a girl whom he had only just started to explore his feelings for before she died, had left him somewhat lacking in the female knowledge department. Of course he did know a little bit about females, and was not completely unknowledgeable about flirting, since Anko had a tendency to tease him in a manner that could be considered flirting. Well, if trying to feed someone to their snakes, cuddling to them while rubbing their cheeks against his whisker marks, or pressing someone's face into their bosom was flirting. However, it was thanks to the experience he gained from the interactions he had with those three that he was able to determine that since she had not hit him and since she was smiling despite the redness on her cheeks, that he had not said anything wrong and may have actually done good by complimenting the girl on her looks. A small flash of pain crossed his eyes as he thought of Haku, and of the many times he had gotten that rosy color on her cheeks. Thankfully he was able to bury the small flash before anyone was able to see it. Now that we've determined my teammate's sexual preference, how about I get your name? It's Temari, Sabaku no Temari, she answered with a small tinge of pink still running across her cheeks. And you? Naruto grinned. Uzumaki Naruto. Gaara looked over at the blonde shinobi in curiosity before turning to Sasuke. It's Sabaku no Gaara. And yours? Sasuke smirked as he tried to get back on track. Uchiha Sasuke. I see. I hope to see you in the exams, Gaara replied before leaving, with his two teammates following him. Ah, it's so nice to see you finally found someone for yourself, Sasuke, or should I say Sasuke? Naruto commented, smirking as his two teammates turned and glared at him. What the hell, Dobi? Sasuke growled at him, his eyes morphing into his Sharingan in an attempt to scare or at least deter the blonde from his constant remarks on his sexuality. Don't be mad, Tem, I don't care if you're secretly in the closet or anything, Naruto grinned as he began walking away. Though, Sakura may be disappointed. Anyways, I think I'm going to get some Ichirakus, I'm starving. Whistling a jaunty tune, Naruto left his two angry teammates. A little ways away, three figures had just finished watching the confrontation. So what do you think? A figure asked as he leaned against a tree. One of his companions looked at him. They're nothing serious, although we'll need to keep an eye on that black-haired one, and the one with the gourd on his back. Sakura gave an annoyed grunt as she looked at the bridge she and her teammates were supposed to meet at today. Both Naruto and her sensei were late, again. Really, she couldn't understand it. How could the person who had asked them to come at a certain time always be late? She glanced over at Sasuke to see him leaning against the rail, looking so cool and calm with his serious expression. This is just great. Sasuke-kun is right in front of me and I can't even enjoy it. She had tried everything she could ever think of to get the raven-haired boy's attention, but nothing seemed to work. Looking cute, seductive, wearing makeup, or different clothing, she had tried all manner of things. All of it had ended in failure. Every attempt she had ever made to make Sasuke notice her had ended in failure. She was running at her wit's end. Morning, you two. Sakura turned her attention to the other end of the bridge as her blonde teammate finally arrived. Why the hell are you always so late? A tick mark appeared on the pinket's head. Naruto shrugged with an air of indifference as he walked over to the end of the bridge. Unlike you and the Emo King, I've realized that Kakashi is going to be 3 hours late every day. Rather than wasting my time sitting here, I train in the mornings. Sakura's right eye twitched and she opened her mouth to yell when a puff of smoke signaled the arrival of their sensei. Yo, you're late, Sakura shouted as she pointed at the silver-haired Jonin. Sorry, I had to help an old lady cross the street, only to find out that she was a missing ninja and I was forced to fight her. Kakashi held out 3 papers before Sakura could yell again. Anyway, these are for you 3. Naruto took one of the papers and raised an eyebrow. You nominated us for the chunin exams. Yep. Kakashi nodded his head. I figured you guys are ready for the challenge. Those of you who wish to take it should sign those papers and turn them in at room 301 at the academy tomorrow by 4 p.m. Less than a second later, Kakashi disappeared in a puff of smoke. As Naruto looked at the approval sheet for the chunin exams, he could not keep the grin from forming on his face. This is gonna be awesome. Sasuke smirked. For once I agree with you, Dobi. Hey, Naruto returned the smirk. Looks like this will be a good chance to show everyone just how good I've gotten. I've been looking to kick some ass. Sakura looked between the two before looking at her own sheet in worry. She wasn't as sure as her 2 teammates about entering these exams. 10/10. Naruto shouted in a sing-song voice as he opened the door to the Higurashi weapons shop. Tenten looked up from the magazine she had been reading and grinned. Hey Naruto. You look excited. Naruto gave her his foxy grin. Patent pending. As he walked up to her, I think I've got a reason to be today. Oh, care to fill me in? Tenten raised an eyebrow at her friend. She was glad to see that he was close to acting like his old self. It had taken a lot of work to get him to be as open back up and return to his cheerful attitude around her after he had gone on his C-rank mission. She had literally spent 4 days using him as target practice in order for him to make up for ignoring her like he had. Even then, Naruto still refused to tell her what happened on the mission, often redirecting the conversation to something else whenever it came up. Maybe later, Naruto replied as he leaned on the counter. So is it ready? Of course, Tenten grinned as she stood up, knowing what he was talking about. Follow me. The two walked into the back of the store where the forge was located. Moving the ladder, Tenten climbed up it and grabbed a box. Grinning like a maniac, she showed it to Naruto. I have a feeling you'll like this. Naruto opened the box and peered inside. Sitting on soft padding was a dark black gauntlet. It was basically a glove attached to a forearm bracer. The top of the glove had a protector that looked similar to the standard metal guards on most fingerless gloves with the leaf insignia. However, there were 3 vertical slits on the front and it was about 2 inches thicker than a standard guard. Under the wrist was another, smaller padding that had several small holes on either side of a large slit that went horizontally. Put it on and give it a go, Tenten suggested. Nodding, Naruto took the gauntlet and put it on, strapping it together and tightening the bands so it fit snugly on his hand and wrist. He channeled some chakra into the top of the bracer and grinned as 3 wicked-looking claws flickered into existence out of the top over the fingers in between his thumb and pinky, extending 4 inches past his hand. Now this is what I'm talking about. He looked over at Tenten. I assume the bottom is a kunai and senbon launcher. Tenten nodded. Yep. Though the kunai you have to use are special. I didn't want the gauntlet to get too bulky and whatnot, so I created a kunai that's a lot thinner than the standard kind. I bet you just made them so I have to come here to visit every time I need to replenish my stock, Naruto said. He gave the bun-haired weapon user a grin. Miss me that much? Tenten scoffed and gave him a playful punch on the shoulder. Don't be so full of yourself, no one could miss your ugly mug. She giggled as Naruto gave her a pout. Besides, this is the only place you'd want to shop anyways. Her light tone stopped as she gave him a dangerous glare. Right. Sure Tenten. Of course, Naruto replied, sweating a bit from the now oppressive look he was getting. Good. Tenten brightened up and smiled at him and the aura of dread vanished. Now, the launcher also uses that containment seal you made for it, since it was the only one that worked. You just channel chakra into the bottom and take aim. Though, you're going to have to go to a training field to test it. Naruto's sweat dropped at the completely random shift of emotions that all women seemed prone to do. Still he was too excited to worry about his friend's odd mood swings. He had a new weapon to test and an exam to prepare for. Chapter 15. Start your engines, the chunin exams begin. The next morning found Naruto being woken up by that damned infernal clock of his, its blaring beep annoying him to no end. Before it could beep too much, Naruto picked it up and hurled it across the room, shattering it as it hit the wall. A few seconds later the blonde shinobi sat up and yawned, stretching himself out before swinging his legs over the edge and getting out of bed. Putting his hand in the ever-familiar ram seal, he made a cage bunshin to cook him breakfast while he headed towards the shower and began to get ready. After he finished drying himself off, Naruto made his way over to his new dresser, one he had bought with the money he made from his A-rank mission, since the amount of cash he had come out with on that had given him enough money to do a little splurging. Even though he had been forced to henge into a random civilian in order to get it, since they had kicked him out the moment he had entered the shop as himself. Opening up the necessary drawers, he grabbed his clothes. A pair of black Anbu-styled pants, a fishnet shirt that went under a black sleeveless Chinese-style shirt with a dark orange trim. He also wrapped his bandages around his calves and foot before putting on a new pair of black Anbu-issue shinobi sandals that Tenten had managed to get for him. Walking over to his closet, Naruto opened the door to reveal several sets of black full-body cloaks. Naruto had originally let Tenten choose them for him because he felt they added a mysterious aura. However, they also had the practical use of hiding his hand seals and masking movements until when he was in a taijutsu battle, an advantage that had helped him in his fights quite a bit. He grabbed one of them and pushed the rest aside to reveal a cubby that had been created from a modified containment seal. He reached in and pulled out the box, setting it and his cloak on the bed. Opening it, Naruto grabbed the containment scrolls he had created that were inside. Each one contained a set number of necessary supplies: kunai, shuriken, ninja wire, flash bangs, smoke bombs, custom-made exploding notes and various forms of weaponry. Having hung out with Tenten as much as he had, Naruto had obviously learned the value of being a walking armory. Naruto grabbed several scrolls. Each one contained well over the necessary amount for a standard A-rank mission, another habit he had picked up from his weapon-using friend. He also grabbed some that held food, camping and camouflage equipment. Next he unrolled one of the scrolls that held his weapons. Unsealing them, Naruto looked at what he wanted to bring. There was a bow staff, naginata, katana, nodashi, kodachi, his new gauntlet and kusarigama. Tenten had proclaimed he was decently sufficient in the use of all of them, meaning he could hold his own for more than half an hour against her. But he really only excelled with the bow staff and a katana. Deciding it was better to be safe than sorry, Naruto grabbed the bow staff and sealed it into the containment seal on his left hand, and the katana on his right. He picked up the gauntlet and put it on his right hand after that, and then placed his special containment scroll for the kunai and senbon into the containment seal for the launcher. After that he placed his cloak on, hiding his body from view. Feeling ready, he went into the kitchen to eat, and then he would head over to the academy. Coming up on the academy, Naruto found his two teammates already there, sitting outside of the entrance and obviously waiting for him. "How come you're here so late?" Sakura asked in a loud voice. "Sakura, it's 3:30, we've got half an hour before the chunin exams start." "Why would I want to wait for Kami knows how many hours in a room with loads of other people, when I can just relax at home?" Naruto asked in a bored voice. Sakura turned red with anger at what she perceived as Naruto insulting her. "Anyway, the tem over there looks like he's getting antsy, so let's go." Naruto did not give the pink kid a chance to reply as he walked inside and began walking up the stairs. After a minute or two his teammates began to follow him, making their way towards the door he had left through. Said teammate was already walking up the stairs, making his way towards the room where the first stage was supposed to begin. When Naruto reached the next floor it was to find at least a dozen genin standing around the designated door with 2 other genin blocking said door and beating anyone who tried to get past them. Now that's odd, I could have sworn I had only gone up 1 flights of stairs. Naruto frowned as he watched the 2 genin bully everyone else and replayed the last few seconds in his mind to confirm that he was indeed on the 2nd floor. So then how come that door says 30.1? His eyes widened as he realized what was going on. Of course, idiot. That door obviously has a genjutsu on it or something. Genjutsu was one of his worst subjects. He could break out of several C and even a few B ranked ones thanks to Naruto asking Kakashi to place him under several genjutsu and make him break out of them. However, detecting genjutsu was something he still had trouble with. Naruto had to actively pulse his chakra and search his own system to find foreign chakra that would indicate he was in a genjutsu. This form was useless when in battle since it took far too long, and it also did not work on area-wide genjutsu since they were not genjutsu that invaded the body but was dispersed around the area the genjutsu was cast, which would explain why he was unable to detect this one and had to rely on his memory and knowledge of the area to realize what was going on. Now that he knew what was going on, Naruto looked over at the 2 genin who were guarding the door more closely. If this is a genjutsu then those 2 must be chunin who are supposed to keep the unworthy from passing. Now that I look at them they do remind me of Kotetsu and Izumo, so they must be under henge. He snorted, what a lame ass henge, they didn't even change their appearance, just their age. Idiots. With that sorted out in his mind the whiskered blonde began to walk on, ignoring the conversation that was going on at the door. Come on, let us through. One of the genin in the hallway yelled. PSH, you think we're going to let you through just because you tell us to? People die in these exams, and those who don't sometimes quit being a shinobi altogether simply because of the mental and emotional trauma they go through. The Henjid Kotetsu said, really, we're doing you guys a favor. Please let us through. Naruto stopped just as he was about to reach the exit to the next set of stairs when he heard the familiar voice. Turning around he focused his attention on a familiar brown-haired girl. Tenten. I should have known her team would be in these exams. They have a year's worth of experience over me and their sensei is a training nut after all. Didn't you hear me? Kotetsu said as he reared his fist back. I said get lost. He threw his fist at Tenten. However, before it could hit Naruto intercepted it. Now that's not very nice, Naruto said with a slight grin, a grin that made Kotetsu and Izumo actually shiver as it reminded them of Anko when she was looking for blood. Or that one time Izumo had knocked her over while eating dango. It was a particularly traumatizing memory that they did not want to recall. Internally grinning at the way they shivered, and mentally thanking Anko, the spiky-haired blonde continued, didn't your mother teach you not to hit a lady? HMPH. We were just doing her a favor, Izumo replied, trying to regain his bravado. I suggest you heed our advice. This exam isn't for something just anyone can take and hope to survive. Naruto smirked as he let go of Kotetsu's hand. Don't worry, I was just looking for my friend who you were about to hit by the way. The blonde Konoha shinobi turned around to look at Tenten and winked, yo. I was looking all over the place for you, Tenten. He turned her around and wrapped an arm over her shoulder, leading her to where he saw Neji. When they had gone a certain distance away, Naruto leaned in and whispered into her ear, you do realize that this is the 2nd floor, right? Tenten looked at him strangely, the 2nd floor. But that door said, her eyes widened a bit as she remembered going up only 2 flights of stairs. She turned a glare on Neji, why didn't you tell me we were only on the 2nd floor? Neji shrugged, I did not deem it necessary. Tenten scowled a bit while Naruto rolled his eyes, you know, you sure treat your teammates like shit. Has anyone ever told you that you're a douchebag? Neji's eyes narrowed at Naruto, and veins began to pulse around his eyes as he activated his Byakugan in an effort to enhance his glare. The 2 of them had never gotten along. Naruto was a lot more like Lee, believing that hard work can overcome anything, including genius. While Neji believed everything was controlled by fate and had gone out of his way to inform the blonde on the error of his ways on many occasions. Needless to say, whenever the blonde would come and train with Team 9 the 2 would always butt heads. Oi, drop the genjutsu and let us pass. The pair both turned around to see Sasuke standing there with a smirk on his features as he looked at the two disguised chunin at the door. Sakura noticed it the moment we got here. Isn't that right, Sakura? Despite being surprised by the raven-haired genin's words, Sakura became ecstatic that her Sasuke-kun was involving her in something. She nodded her head and immediately backed him up. Yeah, that's right. We're only on the second floor. It's so obvious even a child could see through it. Naruto groaned as the pair made asses of themselves. Even he could tell this was supposed to weed out the losers who would not even stand a chance in the exams. Seriously, how was he the dead last when there were people like that? Sasuke at least should have known. Naruto sighed and tried to control the irritation he was feeling. While he did not like Sasuke in any way and enjoyed making fun of him every chance he got, he would at least acknowledge that his teammate was intelligent. However, sometimes the Uchiha heir was just a pain in the ass, especially when he tried to show off like he was now. So you noticed it, did you? Kotetsu smirked as the genjutsu on the door was dispelled, revealing it to be the second floor. Impressive. But just because you saw through it, doesn't mean you good enough to enter. Kotetsu launched a kick at Sasuke, who retaliated with a kick from the opposing leg. However, both kicks were caught by the green blur that was Lee, who managed to catch both their legs with just one hand. Now is not the time to be fighting, the green-clad genin said in a calm voice, releasing their legs. That guy caught both our legs like it was nothing. Sasuke's eyes narrowed as he looked at the green-clad genin. He must have some serious chakra in his hands. Way to go and make an ass of yourself, Tem, Naruto said as he made his way over to them. I can't believe you actually let all these people pass. Now we're going to have to contend with a bunch of losers who couldn't even see through a simple genjutsu. Sasuke scowled at the insult. However, being an Uchiha, he did not deign to give Naruto a response other than his standard grunt, HN. Lee, what happened to disguising our strength? I thought that was your idea, Neji said with a frown. Wasn't that the plan we agreed on? Yes, but, Lee turned his attention to Sakura and blushed. Oh boy, here it comes, thought Naruto as he resisted the urge to snicker. You are Sakura-san, yes? Asked Lee as he appeared in front of her. Yeah, Sakura replied, taking a step back from the creepy spandex-wearing genin. I am Rock Lee. Let's go out sometime, I will protect you with my life. Lee gave the pink at the nice guy pose, complete with gleaming teeth and wink. No, Sakura said in a deadpan voice. Anime tears began to stream down Lee's face, but why not? Because you're weird, Sakura stated, causing Lee's shoulders to slump. Naruto snickered a bit before patting Lee on the back. There, Lee. There are plenty of other fish in the sea. Plenty of better-looking ones too. He winced slightly as the thought crossed his mind and an image of Haku appeared. He promised that he would not let her death consume him, that he would move on but always keep her in his memories. Sometimes it was hard to keep that mindset, but he was working on it. Neji just sneered as he watched his teammates and the blonde kid who occasionally trained with them. He turned his attention to Sasuke. You, what's your name? HN, Sasuke smirked. Isn't it considered proper manners to give your name before asking for someone else's? Neji scowled while Naruto stuck a fist in his mouth so he would not laugh. Leaning over, he whispered to Tenten, looks like Konoha's #1 emo Tem has finally met Konoha's #1 snob in what's sure to be the battle of the century. As Tenten giggled, he looked back up to the two who were glaring at each other. Naruto leaned back and cupped his hands around his mouth to make a microphone. Hey Neji. I'm sorry to inform you, but you're too late. Sasuke-chan has already found the love of his life in one of the Suna shinobi here. Shut up, Dobi, Sasuke yelled. Meanwhile, Neji had activated his Byakugan and glared at the blonde, who had gone back to ignoring them. That wasn't very nice, Naruto-kun, Tenten said, though she could not help but let the small giggle escape, finding what he had said and the insult on the pair's sexuality to be hilarious. Naruto raised an eyebrow as he looked at her in curiosity. Since when did you call me kun? Tenten blushed as she realized what she said. She did not get a chance to say anything, however, as Sakura grabbed him by the back of his cloak. Come on, Baka. Let's go or we're gonna be late. Hey. Naruto ripped the pinket's hand off of his clothes, hands off the merchandise pinky. Tenten watched Team 7 leave, shaking her head in amusement. Tenten, Neji called, making her turn her attention to him. Let's go before the exam starts. Oh right. I'm coming. Tenten began walking in Neji's direction before she stopped when she noticed her green-clad teammate was standing still, looking in the direction Naruto's team had left in. Lee, you coming or what? Lee, who had not been following them, turned and looked at her. You and Neji may go on ahead, there is something I need to check out. Do not worry, I will catch up. Tenten looked at him for a moment before she shrugged and began following Neji. Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura walked towards the set of stairs that were in front of them. However, as they moved, they saw Rock Lee standing on the next floor with a serious expression on his face. You, the one with the black eyes and bad attitude, I wish to challenge you. Lee jumped off the stairs and landed in front of them. My name is Rock Lee. The green-clad genin got into the beginning stance for what Naruto knew was the Goken, feet together with one fist tucked into his side and his other hand out in a bring it on gesture. You said it was common courtesy to give your name before asking for someone else's. Am I right? Sasuke smirked as he looked at the kid and gave him an answer, Uchiha Sasuke. So it is true. You are this year's Rookie of the Year that everyone has been talking about. It would be an honor to fight you, Lee exclaimed. Naruto groaned. Listen Lee, I know you've wanted to beat the snot out of emote teams like him and Neji for a while now, but since he's my teammate I need him alive and in one piece, alright. Do not worry Naruto-kun, I will not hurt him too badly. Lee gave Naruto the nice guy pose. Sasuke scoffed at the mere thought that the Dobi thought he would be defeated. HN. You know my name and yet you challenge me. You must be dumber than I thought. Oh great, there goes Mr. Ego. Naruto sighed at how large Sasuke's head had been getting since he unlocked his Sharingan. I'll see you two up there. I have no desire to watch Sasuke get his ass kicked. Naruto left, not paying attention to Sakura screaming at him about how her Sasuke-kun wasn't going to lose. As Naruto reached room 301, it was to find Kakashi standing outside the doorway, reading his smut. Kakashi-sensei, what are you doing here? Naruto asked. Kakashi looked up from his book and I smiled. Oh, I'm just here to wish you luck. He blinked for a moment as he noticed something, or rather someone's were missing. Naruto, where are Sasuke and Sakura? Naruto shrugged. Sasuke's getting his ass beat by your eternal rivals, clone. He chuckled as he watched Kakashi shudder, and Sakura is probably cheering him on, or trying to help him up after his ass got beat. As if on cue, Sasuke and Sakura came up with the latter looking worried and the former looking bruised. So, I can see how you really proved your superiority as an Uchiha, Naruto smirked. Shut it Dobi, Sasuke hissed, rubbing the bruise on his cheek. Naruto sighed, I told you he would win. That kid has been a genin for a year longer than we have, he has far more experience than either of us and his method of training is utterly ridiculous. You need to learn to choose your battles Tem. Sasuke did not say anything, but the small wince told Naruto that the raven-haired genin at least recognized what the blonde was saying. Something could be considered a miracle in and of itself, since the last Uchiha in Konoha had not listened to any of his advice since they had gotten back to Konoha. Ahem, Kakashi coughed into his hand, getting the attention of his team before things got out of hand. Well, I'm glad to see you three came. Had one of you not made it, I would have had to disqualify all of you. Naruto tilted his head in confusion. Why? I thought the chunin exams were optional. They are, but they also have to be taken as a team, Kakashi shrugged. So then why didn't you tell us that? Asked Naruto, a little annoyed that his sensei would leave out something so important. I didn't tell you and Sasuke that because I knew either one or both of you would have tried to pressure Sakura into taking it. Naruto sighed and conceded the point. Yeah, I suppose that's true. But none of that matters now. You're all here, and all for the right reasons. Kakashi gave them an eye smile. I know I don't say this too much, but I'm proud of you three. The three genin grinned. Well, Naruto grinned, Sakura had a small smile, while Sasuke was smirking. The three genin stepped past their sensei and opened the doors where the chunin exams would start. The very moment Team 7 had entered the room, every single genin began glaring at them. Many of the genin teams, who were older than them by several years, began leaking killing intent at the trio. Sakura paled and began to shake, having not had much experience with killing intent other than Zabuza and the Kyubis at the battle on the bridge, and even then she had passed out before it could get too bad. Sasuke looked a tad nervous, but soon regained his Uchiha bravado. Naruto, who had been subject to far worse, both from Zabuza and Anko shrugged it off and began glaring back, giving a few teams a dose of his own killing intent that he had Anko help develop. He grinned when several genin began to look away. Just as the trio were about to find a place to sit, a loud squeal erupted behind them. Sasuke-kun, I missed you so much. Ino jumped on top of Sasuke, wrapping her arms around his neck and her legs around his waist. Did you miss me too? Several tick marks appeared on Sakura's forehead. Get the hell off him, Ino pig. Ino looked over at Sakura and pulled her eyelid down while sticking her tongue out. Why would I do that, forehead girl? After all, Sasuke-kun and I have a lot of catching up to do. Man, you guys are here too, so troublesome. Naruto turned and smirked at seeing Shikamaru and Choji walking up to them. What's up, you two? Been having fun? Meh, trying to do something fun is far too troublesome, Shikamaru said with a yawn. Naruto rolled his eyes at the answer he had come to expect from the lazy genin. He had occasionally taken to hanging out with the two on Sunday when he was not training, and had come to know the two decently in that time together. Yahoo, we found you guys. Turning again, everyone saw Kiba, Shino with Hinata staring at Naruto as she hid behind Shino. Kiba walked up to the group with a large, cocky grin. I hope you guys are ready to lose to my team. 'Cause we're gonna rock. Naruto smirked. I was wondering what that smell was. I should have known it was you, Kiba. Kiba stopped and growled at Naruto. What was that, Dobi? You want me to kick your ass? Just try. Naruto's grin widened, a small trace of bloodlust in his grin. I'll take you to the pound. Kiba began to growl at the blonde and looked like he might actually attack him. But before he could, a new voice entered the picture. You know, you guys should really keep it down. The three new genin teams looked over to see one of the older kids walking up to them. He was wearing a purple shirt and pants of the same color. He had round glasses on and white hair with a Konoha headband strapped to his head. He pushed his glasses up onto the bridge of his nose. You guys are the rookies who just came out of the academy, right? I wouldn't be so loud if I were you. And just who the hell are you? Asked Kiba with a growl, still upset that the dead last had made fun of him. The purple-clad genin just smiled as if not bothered by the rude remark. My name's Kabuto, and before you get angry at me, you should look behind you. Everyone did and was instantly subject to the glares and the wave of killing intent sent to them, particularly the genin from a Megakure village hidden in the rain. Most of the rookie genin shivered at the killing intent they were now feeling. That team from AIM, I hear they have rather short tempers, Kabuto muttered to them. While some of the other rookies were trying to regain their lost courage, Naruto just smirked as he jumped on top of one of the tables. Alright, listen up, you chicken shit pansies. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. If any of you want a piece of me, get in a nice and orderly single file line and I'll kick each and every one of your asses real quick. That statement was met with various reactions from the ninja in the room. Yosh, Naruto-kun seems to be in full form today, Lee said at seeing his friend and sparring partner so enthusiastic. Tenten chuckled. Is it just me, or has he gotten even worse with that mouth of his? It's the fate of losers like him to be loud, Neji sneered. Both Tenten and Lee looked at Neji with a frown. Their teammate had been getting progressively worse with his fate rants, ever since Naruto had shown up and started training with them. In fact, both of them were nearing their wits' end on what to do about Neji's attitude. However, they kept their peace for the moment. It's that damn kid again, Kankuro glared at the blonde as he hopped off the table. That punk's gonna get himself killed. Tamari looked over at Naruto with a smirk. I don't know, I think he makes things kind of interesting. Maybe I should see if he wants to go on a date after this. While Kankuro began to sputter, Gaara just stared at Naruto with an impassive gaze. Two of the ninja from Kumo looked over at the odd blonde kid who was yelling before turning their attention back to their conversation. The other Kumo ninja, a blonde-haired Kunoichi, also stared curiously at the blonde for a few seconds before dismissing him. Wow, Naruto, enthusiastic much? Asked Choji, feeling a bit better now that the killing intent was gone. You know, sometimes you're more troublesome than Ino, Shikamaru muttered. What was that, Shikamaru? Ino glared at him and pretended to roll up her non-existent sleeves. After the rookies got over Naruto's proclamation of lying on a heavy ass kicking, they turned back to Kabuto. Your name is Kabuto-san, right? Asked Sakura. Kabuto pushed his glasses up. something Naruto was beginning to think was a habit for the other genin. Yay, that's right. So is this your second time taking these exams? The pink kid asked. No, this is my 7th, Kabuto replied, an embarrassed blush on his face. 7th. Naruto asked incredulously, either you suck so much balls it's amazing you're still alive, or these exams are harder than I thought. It's the latter, I assure you, Kabuto chuckled. However, you know what they say, 7th time's the charm. And it's not like I didn't get anything out of it. The purple-clad shinobi reached into his pouch and pulled out a deck of cards. Since you guys are new and all, why don't I give you a hand? He kneeled down on the ground and began channeling chakra into the top card. There was a small burst of smoke as he flipped it over. The rookie genin leaned in to see that it showed a map of the elemental nations. On each nation was a bar with a number. These are my info cards. Look here, as you can see Konoha has the most teams participating. Of course that's a given since we're on home turf. But just about every shinobi village has brought genin here to participate. We've even got a team from Kumo this year, a rarity considering we're not on good terms with them. Naruto lifted his head up and searched for the team from Kumo, figuring they must be powerful in order to be in the exams while in a somewhat hostile village. As he did, his eyes made contact with the blonde Kumo Kunoichi who had watched him earlier. He took a brief moment to notice her features. She was slightly older than he was by maybe a few years, with long blonde hair several shades lighter than his and bound in bandages that went down to mid-back. She had a black sleeveless shirt with a purple armor piece that covered her stomach up to the middle of her sizable chest. She also wore matching pants and sandals with a violet sash around her waist. Spending time with Anko as much as he had, the small pervert in him that she had created could not help but notice the woman's beauty. However, he also sensed some kind of strange connection to her. Not that she was familiar in any way, but that she felt similar would be the best way he could put it. Like Gaara but different. Both of them soon noticed they were staring at each other and blushed a bit as they looked away. Do your cards hold individual information? Asked Sasuke, bringing Naruto's attention back to the rookie group. Kabuto smirked. Of course, all I need is a name, or even initials, and I can find them for you. Give me everything you have on Rock Lee of Konoha, Sabaku no Gaara of Suna, and Uzumaki Naruto. Everyone looked at Sasuke, wondering why he wanted information on the dead last and his teammate, or any of the other people here. Man, Sasuke, all this time we've been a team and you don't even know my skill set. Naruto gave a mock pout. You really don't know how much that hurts, I almost feel like crying. Sasuke scowled at the Dobi's act, but did his best to ignore him. Man, you know their names and where they come from, that's no fun, Kabuto said as he held up 3 cards. One of them went up in smoke to reveal Rock Lee's card. Let's see, Rock Lee has 246 D-ranked missions and 22 C-ranked missions. His teammates are Higurashi Tenten and Hyuga Neji, last year's Rookie of the Year. Says here that in the academy he had no skills to speak of, but in the last year his taijutsu made a phenomenal jump. Last year he could have entered the chunin exams, but his sensei held the team back a year to gain more experience. Next we have Sabaku no Gaara. It says here he's done 8 C-ranked missions, 27 B-ranked missions and get this, 1 A-ranked mission. His teammates are Sabaku no Tamari, and Sabaku no Kenkiro, his older siblings. Apparently they're the children of the Case Cage. Also, this is just a rumor, but apparently he's come out of every single mission without even getting a scratch. Naruto eyed the red-haired genin curiously, so he's pretty strong then, I bet it will be a blast to fight him. And finally we have Uzumaki Naruto. Let's see, his stats show 65 D-ranked missions, 1 C-turned a ranked mission and, that's odd. It says he also has 1 B-ranked mission that was not given to his other 2 teammates. Said teammates are Uchiha Sasuke and Haruno Sakura. He's average at both ninjutsu and taijutsu but has no skills to speak of in genjutsu. Dobi, how do you have a B-ranked mission when I don't? Asked Sasuke, his scowl back in place. Naruto gave his raven-haired teammate an indifferent shrug. Sorry, but it's classified information, if you don't know, I can't tell you. The Sandaime had told him that he could not tell anyone of Mizuki's betrayal as it was a matter of village security. Of course I think the whole thing was off the record, wasn't it? Naruto looked at Kabuto with a frown. So how did he know about it? The blonde shook his head, he was starting to get paranoid. Damn Anko and her frickin' paranoia, next thing you know I'm gonna start watching for shadows creeping up on me when I'm sitting on the john. So as you can see there's a big turnout this year. All of these teams are the cream of the crop, the best of their villages. Kabuto paused for a moment before adding, well, I'm not sure about Oto, since they just started up last year they're pretty small time and only managed to send one team. You hear that? Asked a teen with bandages covering his entire head except for the right eye. He called a small time. Why don't give him a piece of our mind Dosu? Suggested their female raven-haired teammate. I say we do more than just give them a piece of our minds, suggested the shinobi with spiky black hair. Yeah, let's show them what Oto shinobi are capable of, Dosu said right before all three disappeared. Only a few of the genin within the room could see them, those being the team of Kumo Ninja, the Sabaku Trio, Team 9, Kabuto and Naruto. Naruto's eyes narrowed as he watched the trio close in on Kabuto. He was not sure what they were doing, but there was no way he was going to let them hurt a Konoha shinobi. A second later a spiky-haired Oto shinobi threw two kunai at Kabuto, who jumped back to avoid them. As he stopped Kabuto looked up to find Dosu right in front of him, with the other two on his left and right. The Oto genin was just about to swing the odd-looking metal gauntlet at the purple-clad genin, when Naruto appeared right in front of him. Konoha Senpu, Leaf Hurricane. Naruto shouted as he spun around in the air and smashed his foot into Dosu's face, hard. The Oto genin was sent flying backwards, smashing into the wall on the opposite side hard enough to leave cracks. His two teammates might have helped, but before they could even make a move two solid copies of the blonde appeared behind them, placing a kunai against their neck. The rookie genin, including Team 7 stared at the blonde in shock. Most of them had not even seen Naruto move, much less figured out when he had the time to make clones. What's more the clones were solid. I don't know who the fuck you people think you are, but if you're going to attack a Konoha shinobi in Konoha territory you must have been hit with every single branch when you fell out of the retard tree, Naruto spoke with a rare scowl. Very few things could actually piss him off, and one of them was when people tried to hurt comrades for no real reason other than to prove their own superiority. Interesting. That kid is much stronger than one might give him credit for at first glance, the blonde Kumo Kunoichi thought. I wonder if he acts the way he does to purposely make people underestimate him. You've been staring at that kid quite a bit Yugito-san, the male genin on their team said. Finally found someone for yourself. A light blush spread across Yugito's cheeks, however she quickly dispelled it and glared at her teammate. I don't know what you're talking about Daisuke. Daisuke just smirked, whatever, just remember why you were put on this team in the first place. Yugito just turned her head, not deigning to look at her teammate who had always been an ass to everyone no matter who they were. Dosu groaned a bit as he stood up and shook his head, trying to clear the cobwebs out of it. That blonde boy hit hard. Oi, you still conscious? Naruto said with a smirk, I hope I didn't hit you too hard. After all, someone as stupid as you are needs all the brain cells they can get. You talk big boy, but that was nothing more than a lucky shot. Dosu growled, angered at being embarrassed and hit by someone who he had not anticipated as being that strong. Well then, why don't you just try again? Naruto taunted, leaking a bit of his killing intent. The next time you try that shit, I'll make sure you get acquainted with that wall so well you won't be able to leave it. Alright, that's enough. Quiet down you little bastards. A gruff voice spoke up. There was a puff of smoke erupted at the front of the room. When it cleared it revealed a tall scarred man in a black trench coat and blue proctor's uniform, along with a dozen chunin in similar outfits minus the trench coat. I'm Morino Ibiki, the proctor for this exam. So long as I'm here there will be no fighting. Do I make myself clear? The man asked, glaring at the Oto genin before turning his attention to the blonde. However the moment he did Ibiki felt pale. Is that you Scarface-san? Asked Naruto with a smirk. Who knew you'd be proctoring these exams? I thought you would be smashing heads in or something over at INT with Anko-ne-chan. Uzumaki, I had not realized you were going to be in these exams. Ibiki shifted a bit, not liking the very Anko-like grin on the genin's face. Oh you know me, Naruto walked up to the much larger man, the grin never leaving his face. I always gotta be a part of the action. It's a good thing you're here though, since you still owe me 200 yen from last week's poker game. Unless of course you want me to tell these wonderful genin about the time you dropped your drawers while interrogating someone . The blonde held out his hand, smirking as Ibiki began grumbling a bit before pulling out his wallet. How you managed to convince Anko to let you into our poker game I'll never know. Though you'll forgive me if I hope it doesn't happen again. Ibiki placed the money in the blonde's hand. Naruto grinned as he unsealed his wallet and put the money in it before sealing it back up. Well, I suppose I can't blame you. It must be embarrassing getting cleaned out by a 12-year-old genin. But hey, that's life, right? Well, it's a pleasure doing business with you, Scarface-san. Grin still in place, Naruto walked through the surprised crowd and made his way back towards the other rookies. Naruto, how do you know Ibiki-san? Asked Ino. Naruto looked at her and shrugged. I have a friend who works in the INT division. I managed to convince her to let me play poker with her, Ibiki and a few others. I managed to clean them out completely. A few were left walking home in nothing more than their underclothes. The blonde shinobi tilted his head. How do you know, Scarface-san? That's easy, my dad was the former head of the INT division. Ibiki-san worked under him as an apprentice for a time, so I would often see him over at the house, Ino replied. Naruto clicked his tongue. Huh, small world. Now that that's out of the way, Ibiki started, hoping to regain some of his lost composure. We will now start the first stage of the chunin exams. Now then, I want all of you to come up here and grab a tab so you can find your assigned seats. Once that is done, the written test will begin. What the hell do you mean, a written test? Naruto shouted. Studying or no, written tests have always been the bane of his existence and he doubted that would ever change. Ibiki smirked, feeling the need for some payback. That's right, Uzumaki, a written test. Now I suggest you shut the hell up and sit down before I kick you out. Naruto began to cry anime tears as he sat at his assigned seat, which was coincidentally right next to two other blondes. Tamari was on his left, while Yugito had gotten the seat to his right. Tamari looked at Naruto and smirked. I take it you don't like written exams. Not liking something is like saying it's mildly disdainful, Naruto answered with a derisive snort. It's something that is a minor nuisance to do, but not outside the realm of actually doing. I despise written exams. They have been the bane of my existence ever since the academy. If I could, I would gladly find every single exam ever written and let the Shinigami eat all them, though he would probably get indigestion. Tamari blinked for a moment before letting out a small laugh. Well, it seems you're in for quite the dilemma. You're telling me, Naruto groaned, stupid scar-faced Tem, I bet he did this on purpose. But I'll get him back for this travesty. Naruto stood up and pointed a finger at Ibiki. You hear that, Tem? Next time we play poker I'm gonna clean you out so badly you'll have to walk home in the buff. Ibiki tossed Naruto a glare as the blonde sat himself back down with Naruto returned the glare. What an odd ninja, thought Yugito as she looked at Naruto. Though, he is kind of cute with those whiskers. She stopped her train of thought right there as a small blush spread across her face before shaking the thought away. What's wrong with me? Thinking about competition like that? Naruto sighed as his glaring contest ended when Ibiki began to explain the rules for the exam. Alright, I will now explain the rules of this test and pay attention because I'm only going over this once. Ibiki waited for a moment to see if anyone was dumb enough to speak. When no one did, he turned to the board. The first rule for this test is that each of you will start off with 10 points, the same amount to the number of questions on this test. For each answer you get wrong, 1 point will be deducted from your overall score. The second rule is that this will be a team test, meaning that if one of you fails, all of you fail. Wait a minute, Sakura shouted, raising her hand. I don't understand. I said no questions. Ibiki barked, cowing the girl to bring her hand back down. The third rule of this test is that anyone who gets caught cheating, either by one of the chunin or myself, will automatically have 2 points deducted from their test. I've got my eyes on you, one of the chunin said, freaking out a few of the more susceptible genin. Well, I don't think Naruto will do well. Even if he sounds smarter occasionally, he's still a baka, Sakura thought. But I know Sasuke-kun will do alright, and I'm confident I can do this, so we should be okay. As for the final rule, anyone who loses their initial points during the test or those who don't answer any of them correctly will fail, along with their teammates. What? Sakura shouted. We're doomed, mumbled Sasuke. Somehow I feel like someone's trying to kill me with their eyes. Naruto said to himself as he felt the killing intent from his teammates. Not one to be outdone, he simply flipped them the bird without turning his head. The last question will be asked at the end of the hour. Ibiki paused as he looked at all the genin. Begin. Good luck, Naruto said to Temari, who felt a smile come onto her face. He looked over at Yugito and gave her a grin. Good luck to you as well. Yugito blinked for a moment, surprised that someone from another village, especially one her village did not get along with, was wishing her luck. Thank you, she mumbled before looking away. Naruto sighed as he flipped over his test. He looked at the first question and frowned. It was way too hard for him to even begin answering, despite the studying he did. He went down each and every question and found that all of them were too hard for him to even begin to understand. In fact, I don't think anyone can answer these except for a walking dictionary like Sakura. Behind him, Sakura sneezed before writing down the answer to another one of the questions. The blonde shinobi discreetly looked around to see what the other genin had figured out. He saw Neji was using his Byakugan to get the answers, as was Hinata. Tenten was using mirrors that were controlled by ninja wire to get the answer, and other genin were using various ways to find the answers as well. It seems that everyone else has also realized that the questions are too hard for them. That has to mean Scarface never intended us to know the answers. He made it hard enough so that we have to cheat without getting caught. Figures he would do something like this. Anko always said he specialized in mental torture. Having figured out what was going on, Naruto now had to find a way to get the answers without anyone finding out. First, I need to find someone with the answers. Looking around, the blonde noticed that the person in front of him was scribbling away and seemed confident that he had all the answers. Bingo! Naruto smirked as he waited for the genin in front of him to finish his test before enacting his plan. Using his control over wind, Naruto created a large gust that forced the windows open, scattering the papers all over the place. Naruto kept his eyes on the paper he wanted and used the confusion to kawarimi it with his own paper. He replaced the other genin's name with his own, before grinning and leaning back in his seat with his feet propped up on the desk. Both Temari and Yugito looked over at their fellow blonde, who just minutes ago had been freaking out and raised an eyebrow, wondering what had changed. Ibiki frowned as he watched people shout and try to grab their papers. He had felt a quick burst of chakra but had not been able to determine where it came from. He looked around the room before his eyes caught Naruto, leaning back in his chair with his feet propped up on the desk. Could he have been the one to make that wind? He narrowed his eyes for a moment before looking away. After a while he looked over at the clock. Time's up. All right, pencils down, it's now time for the 10th question. Just as the man was about to reveal the 10th question, the door opened and in walked Kankuro. Huh, I don't remember him leaving. Naruto scratched his cheek in though before shrugging. I hope your trip to the restroom was enlightening, Ibiki said with a smirk. Crap, he knows about Karasu. Kankuro thought in shock. He tried to play it off as he walked to his seat, absently tossing a piece of paper on Temari's table. Now that we're all here, I can begin the 10th question, Ibiki started. However, before that there are some rules pertaining to this question that you need to know about. First rule, you have to decide whether or not you wish to take a question. Choose. What happens if we don't take it? Asked Temari. Ibiki smirked. If you don't take it, then your points will be reduced to 0, and you will fail along with your teammates. Well then, of course we're going to take it. A random genin shouted. Shut up. I haven't finished explaining the rules yet, Ibiki snapped. If you do choose to take the 10th question, but get it wrong, you will not only fail, but you will be barred from taking the chunin exams ever again. You will remain genin for the rest of your lives. What? That's bull. There have been plenty of people who have taken this test more than once. Kiba growled as he stood up. Well, it seems you just got unlucky this year. I wasn't proctoring those exams, but now that I am, we're playing by my rules. Here I am, Kami, and you will all listen to what I say. Ibiki chuckled a bit at the shocked and scared looks. However, that's why I'm giving you a way out. If you don't feel you can complete the 10th question, then you can bow out now and try again next year. Now for the final question. I will ask those who don't wish to take it to raise their hand. When your number is called, you will be forced to leave along with your teammates. Nobody spoke for several long seconds. However, several people began to raise their hands, bowing out and taking their teammates with them. Naruto frowned as he watched people quit, angry that people could be such cowards. As he continued looking at everyone, he saw Sakura about to raise her hand. Damn it, Sakura. Not now, of all the times for you to get cold feet. Naruto tried to think of a way to get her to stop. Flying by the figurative seat of his pants, he did the only thing he could think of. He raised his hand, shocking the other rookie members. They, along with everyone else, were in for another surprise when Naruto slammed his hand back on the desk with enough force to leave small spiderweb cracks. That shit's not gonna fly here, Scarface-san. Naruto glared at the man. You can't use such pathetic scare tactics on me. Perhaps the head of the INT division is losing his touch. Leave it to the Dobi to say something like that. Sasuke shook his head before smirking. At the very least, he keeps things interesting. I know I keep saying this, but this kid is so odd. Yugito looked at the defiant blonde and smirked. Odd, but as I already said, definitely cute, and I like his attitude. I knew this cutie would keep things interesting. Temari smirked. I wonder if I can get to know him better after the exams. Ibiki glared at the blonde before looking at the other occupants, noticing that everyone who was about to quit were sitting back down. I'll only ask this once, are you sure you wish to continue? Realize that if you fail, you will remain a genin for the rest of your careers. If I wasn't willing to risk something as mundane as my career on this question, how could I be asked to risk my life on a mission? Naruto said with a smirk. If someone's actually enough of a pussy that shit like this scares them, then they don't deserve to be chunin anyway. That little bastard dispelled the illusion of fear I was trying to create. Ibiki frowned as he saw everyone sit back down. Though I do have to hand it to him, he's quite an interesting one. Uzumaki Naruto. He looked around and counted the number of people still there. There's 78 people left. Stretching this out anymore would be pointless. He glanced over at the chunin proctors to see them giving him a nod. To those of you still remaining, I only have one thing to say. Congratulations on passing the first stage of the chunin exams. What? A random genin shouted. What about the 10th question? Asked Ino. Ibiki opened his mouth to speak, however a sound cut him off. He along with everybody else turned to look at Naruto, who was laughing maniacally. The two blonde girls leaned away from him, wondering if he had somehow lost his mind. You care to share what's so funny, Uzumaki? Asked a disgruntled Ibiki. It's just that Ino is supposed to know you since her dad was the head of INT before you. Naruto laughed, a wide grin on his face. I would have thought she realized your specialty is in psychological torture. She should have known that the entire test was a sham. A sham? Asked Yugito, tilting her head in confusion. What do you mean? I mean the question on whether or not to continue taking the test was the whole point of the entire exams. Naruto answered with a wide grin. Isn't that right, Proctor-san? Ibiki grunted in acknowledgement. Give the Gaki a cookie. Yes, that's right, the last question was the point of the exam. Then what about the other 9 questions? Asked Temari, confused and angry at being led on like that. That's easy to figure out, Naruto said as his more analytical mind began taking over. The blonde looked over at Ibiki and raised an eyebrow. Ibiki sighed as he gave a wave, gesturing for Naruto to continue. Right, so the first 9 questions were quite obviously an intelligence-gathering session. Naruto began as he recalled some of the information that was in the books Anko had suggested when he asked her. Gathering accurate intelligence in a timely manner has always been one of the key components towards learning more about your enemy, especially in wartime. It's one of the fundamental skills for a chunin to know, and so Scarface-san over there wanted to make sure we could gather accurate information while under pressure. Hence the chunin watching us. Naruto looked over at Ibiki and grinned. How am I doing so far? Accurate, Ibiki grunted before continuing where the blonde left off. I'm sure most of you figured out that the questions on the test were far too hard to answer. So you had to cheat in order to get the answers. Though even knowing you had to cheat would have been useless if you didn't have the answers to begin with. Therefore we placed 2 chunin in the room with you who did have the answers. It was here that the 2 chunin raised their hand. One of them was the person that Naruto stole the test from. Okay, I did not see that coming. I must have incredible luck, Naruto thought with a sweat drop. As the Gaki said accurate intelligence is important, Ibiki took off his bandana to reveal a head full of scars. Holy shit, Naruto shouted in surprise. When I called you Scarface I didn't realize it was so literal. Man, It looks like Ten-chan decided to use your head as target practice. A little ways behind Naruto, Tenten blushed, secretly vowing vengeance against her blonde friend. You better learn to keep that mouth of yours shut, Gaki, Ibiki threatened while a few of the class snickered. This kid was ruining his reputation. This is the result of when misinformation is more valuable than a life. On missions and on the battlefield, people will risk their lives to get that information. But that doesn't explain the point of the 10th question, Tamari said. The 10th question is where this test really comes into play, Ibiki said as he regained his lost pride. The choice to take your chances and answer the question or give up. It's meant to be a hard choice between those two options, though most people are more than willing to bow out and take it next year. Those are the people who don't deserve to be chunin. Only those who decided to stay and are willing to risk their careers and quite possibly their lives are the ones who deserve the title chunin. What are you trying to get at? Asked Kiba, who was starting to get annoyed with the man's pointless speaking. What he's saying, dog breath, is that in order to be a chunin you have to be someone who is willing to risk your life for the sake of your comrades and mission. Naruto said, smirking as Kiba growled at him, you know, if the dead last of your academy class is telling you that, it probably means you should do some more studying. Just because you can know something is pointless as that doesn't make you any less of a loser, Dobi. Kiba growled. Didn't I tell you there would be no fighting? Ibiki shouted, finally having enough and blasting everyone with killing intent. The genin were instantly cowed, even Naruto began to feel uncomfortable at the amount he was putting out. I swear, Ibiki mumbled before getting back on track. Anyways, congratulations on passing, and good luck in the next exam. The genin who passed only had a moment to celebrate before the window next to Ibiki shattered and a black ball of something flew in. Not even a second later their ball unfurled and showed a large banner that became hung in the middle of the room by two kunai on each side and stuck into the walls. The banner read, the single and incredibly sexy, second proctor of the chunin exams, Mitarashi Anko, on it for all to see. That was when said trench coat-clad kunoichi stepped into view. Alright guys, this is no time to be celebrating, shouted Anko as she put her fist on her hips and grinned, dutifully ignoring the nosebleeds and looks of lust she caught from the men, and the glares from the women. My name's Mitarashi Anko and I'm the second proctor for the next exam, now everybody follow me. She pumped her fist into the air, giving the male genin a good look at her nearly unclothed assets. Anko, you're early, again, Ibiki muttered. He. Anko laughed as she rubbed the back of her head in an embarrassed manner. She looked out across the genin and frowned. What the hell is this, Ibiki? There are 26 teams left. She smirked at her partner, you must be losing your touch. Actually you can thank that Gaki of yours for all the extra baggage, Ibiki said. Gaki? Anko asked in confusion before her eyes caught the sight of a grinning Naruto. Hey look, it's my favorite Gaki. I didn't know you were in these exams. Naruto gave her a fox-like grin, I was hoping to surprise you. Besides, you didn't think I would miss this party, did you? Hey, I guess not, Anko smirked. Well, this makes things more interesting. Alright you little bastards, I want all of you to follow me. Failure to do so and I'll feed you to my snakes. Anko grinned as she jumped out of the window. Well, we'd better follow her. Naruto stood up and looked at the two girls who he had been sitting by. If you don't do as she says, she really will feed you to her snakes. He shuddered a bit before moving towards the window and jumping out, leaving the two girls confused. After everyone had gotten their wits back, they walked several minutes following Naruto and Anko, who were having an animated conversation about Dango. How the hell does Naruto know this, slut? Sakura wondered as she stared at the scantily clad woman in disgust. This woman has the same way of speech that Naruto does. Sasuke narrowed his eyes at the pair. Could she be the person he occasionally refers to? Many of the other genin had similar thoughts ranging from curiosity to jealousy, with the boys wondering how Naruto knew such a hot kunoichi, while a select few of the girls wondered what that woman did to get the blonde's attention. Eventually they reached a fenced-off forest that held some of the largest trees any of the genin had ever seen. Naruto walked back to the other genin, standing beside Tenten as Anko spun around and grinned at them. Welcome one and all to the second stage of the chunin exams, Training Area 44. Or as I like to call the Forest of Death. Thank you guys for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe and have a great day.